Chapter 923. I don't think I need to emphasize the value of the evolution cube. Now that this universal treasure that is coveted by countless organizations is in Black Star's hands, it is very risky for the dynasty. However, the universal civilizations will not force their beyond grade A allies to hand over their universal treasures, so they acquiesced to Black Star's ownership of the evolution cube. However, this does not mean that the dynasty will be at ease. Heber nodded. Indeed. Continue. Only with the evolution cube in the hands of the dynasty can this risk be eliminated. Although the Battle of Planet Lighthouse was won, it also sounded an alarm within the dynasty. Instead of believing in Black Star's strength, it is better to prevent similar things from happening again. The Radiant Federation's multidimensional sky-opening transportation device will always be a threat. Think about it. Radiance can gather a group of beyond grade as to attack the Black Star Corps' headquarters at any time. How dangerous would that be? If Radiance could do it, they would have done it long ago. Heber was not swayed. Yes, considering various reasons, the Radiant Federation will not take the risk. Therefore, they used a roundabout method to pressure the dynasty and Black Star. However, if all these methods are ineffective, the possibility of taking the risk will only increase. Heber did not deny it and said, even if there are external threats, Uranril values Black Star, and the dynasty will not force him. The success rate of your plan is negligible. I advise you to give up as soon as possible. We have to give it a try. Lovell slowly said, Black Star is close to the dynasty's ruler's faction and has received a lot of protection. However, you also know that there are many factions within the dynasty. Ever since the appearance of the evolutionary totem, the calls for Black Star to hand over the evolution cube have been getting louder and louder. Black Star refused to take the evolution cube and settle down on the dynasty's mother planet, which made more factions more determined. Heber frowned. You seem to know a little too much. Hearing this, Lovell smiled mysteriously. Because I'm not just here to represent radiance and ethereal. Ha ha! Heber suddenly burst out laughing. Your appetite is really big, to think that you want to eat all three of them. No wonder. I was wondering just now. If Black Star gave the evolution cube to the dynasty, Radiance and Ethereal would not even have the last chance to take the risk. So that's how it is. Lovell smiled and didn't answer. She secretly sighed at Sorokin's courage. On the surface, Sorokin had agreed to the deal between the Federation and the Church, but in secret, he had contacted some of the dynasty's factions and changed the story of the plan to suppress the Black Star army. He said that he wanted to force Black Star to hand over the evolution cube and carry out a second transaction behind his back. This made the Limitless Financial Group's intention of suppressing the Black Star army in line with the interests of the three parties. This was both to leave a way out and to maximize the benefit. Sorokin was not someone who would listen to orders obediently. He had his own interests. At the scale that the Limitless Financial Group had developed to, they had long stopped making money from wars. The series of turbulence brought about by the Battle of Planet Lighthouse had caused the Limitless Financial Group's stock price to fluctuate. In order to prevent such a situation from happening again, Sorokin would rather become a pacifist and completely cut off the possibility of the evolution cube starting a war. This would make the two parties lose the chance to take the risk and resolve the conflict between the three universal civilizations. If the evolution cube fell into the hands of the dynasty, it would eliminate the risk of cosmic turbulence. On the surface, he had agreed to Radiance and Ethereal, but in reality, he was a third party. Lovell paused for a moment before saying in a deep voice, when the dynasty has the evolution cube, all the benefits of the evolutionary totem will be in the hands of the dynasty, and Black Star will be kicked out of the game. This way, the dynasty will become the beneficiary and enjoy all the benefit. The possibility of opening up the right to purchase the evolution cube to the outside world will increase because of this. This will satisfy the pressure from radiance and ethereal. They also do not want to take the risk, so they might be relieved if they completely give up on this idea. Sorokin. Humph, this guy is quite interesting. Heber narrowed his eyes and slowly said, after saying so much, the premise is that Black Star hands over the evolution cube. If it doesn't work out, all these are empty words. What do you plan to do? Hearing this, Lovell was overjoyed. Heber's question meant that he was tempted. Very simple. Put pressure on Black Star from both inside and outside, and let him see that the benefits of handing over the evolution cube are greater than keeping it. Tell me about it. During the Battle of Planet Lighthouse, Black Star obtained great results and sealed the mouths of those factions that wanted to hand over the evolution cube. However, the dynasty's casualties were also real. As long as the dynasty continues to suffer more losses regarding the evolutionary totem, Black Star will face more pressure from within the dynasty. Even ruler Uranril will not be able to suppress all of it. However, this is the work of Radiance and Ethereal, so forgive me for not being able to reveal it. What about the external pressure? This will mean dealing with the Black Star core itself, so we need your help. If you want me to betray the dynasty, then forget about it. Lovell smiled. Don't worry, this is definitely beneficial. Even if we don't target the Black Star core, the Bloodshed Land will still benefit and will not have any conflict with the dynasty. How? Very simple. Our limitless financial group will invest in expanding our business with the Bloodshed Land, taking back the market that the Black Star core took away, suppressing the Black Star core's business. At the same time, we will develop the Flickering World together. We will use our influence in the dynasty to obtain a better territory for you. You are also an ally of the dynasty, and the dynasty will not have any objections to the competition between the two of you. Your Excellency Tyrant is also clear about the strength of the limitless financial group. With our investment, regardless of whether the plan succeeds or not, the Bloodshed Land will never lose out. Hearing this, Heber closed his eyes and pondered. After a few seconds, he opened his eyes again and replied calmly, All right, I agree. Lovell heaved a sigh of relief in her heart, and her tense nerves also relaxed. She chuckled and said, In this deal, only Black Star will lose. However, for the peace of the universe, he will have to suffer. Peace of the universe, Heber mocked in his heart but did not show it on his face. He slowly said, The Radiant Federation, the Arcane Church, part of the Red Empire's factions, and my Bloodshed Land. Humph, your limitless financial group's actions are really not small. You actually created an anti-Black Star alliance. This is business, not personal grudges. Lovell smiled nonchalantly. Let's hope he knows what's good for him. Anyway, he won't hand over the cube for nothing. The dynasty will definitely give him sufficient compensation. Heber secretly curled his lips. Although he did not like Black Star, in his opinion, the chances of Black Star compromising were close to zero. That B******'s ability to resist pressure was frighteningly strong. Even if Lovell exaggerated it, he was still not optimistic about the limitless financial group's plan. However, the Bloodshed Land would not lose out. Heber was willing to cooperate with the limitless financial group and take the opportunity to develop himself. He was not willing to sit back and watch Han Shao leave him further and further behind. The next day, at the Black Star Corps headquarters, there were still a few days before the official gathering. Many guests were walking around and expanding their social circle. It was very lively. Han Shao visited Sorokin early in the morning and invited him to visit the headquarters. Sorokin gladly agreed. The two of them strolled around the headquarters while chatting. Han Shao once again requested to spar, but Sorokin still rejected him. Han Shao was a little helpless. The other party did not want to spar and directly admitted defeat. He did not have the mentality of an unyielding expert. Just as Han Shao was hesitating, Sorokin seemed to have suddenly thought of something. I heard that Aesop is with you? Han Shao raised his brows. You know that, ahem, old man? When he was an ancient one, I met him a few times. I once invited him to join the Limitless Financial Group, but he rejected me. Sorokin shook his head. Aesop, this old man, is really a social butterfly. Wherever he goes, there will be big shots who recognize him. Han Zhao's mouth twitched. By the way, I also heard that Ames and you are lovers? Han Shao was stunned. Where did you hear this from? It's been spreading in many places. I only heard it by chance. Sorokin sighed. A union between beyond grade as is too rare. I can't even remember who the last couple was. The leader of the Limitless Financial Group actually has the time to pay attention to such gossip. Han Shao shook his head helplessly. It's precisely because I'm the leader of a financial group that I need to pay attention to any news. Business opportunities are often hidden within. Sorokin smiled. Han Shao suddenly thought of something. If I remember correctly, you seem to be the successor of the Limitless Financial Group, not the founder. Yes. There is very little information about you in the universe. I'm a little curious about your experience before you became a Beyond Grade A. Haha, does Your Excellency Black Star care so much about my childhood? Sorokin laughed. In the eyes of many Beyond Grade As, their life before they became a Beyond Grade A was no different from their childhood. I'm just curious. Han Shao waved his hands. That's all in the past. It's nothing more than training and battles. There's nothing to talk about. Sorokin shook his head with a smile and suddenly asked, I wonder what Your Excellency Black Star's ambitions are. Ambitions? Does universal peace count? Han Shao joked. What a coincidence. Me too. Sorokin laughed. While chatting, Han Shao multitasked and secretly entered the quantum network to contact Aesop. Very soon, he hacked into Aesop's communicator. An old face suddenly appeared in the quantum network's field of vision, clearly startled. Black Star? I'm watching a show. Why did you hack into my communicator? Old man, I have something to ask you. Do you know Sorokin? Aesop was stunned. I do. Why are you mentioning him? He's right next to me. I'm quite curious about him. What kind of person was he when you met him in the past? Hearing this, Aesop pondered for a while before saying, Sorokin, TSK, what a sly old fox. You'll never know if what he says is true. You'd better be careful when dealing with him. Then how's his combat strength? I don't know. Anyway, he's stronger than me. Aesop shrugged. Isn't that obvious? Han Shao was speechless. Alright, stop bothering me. Hurry up and restore my communicator to normal. I want to continue watching the show. Helplessly ending the call, Han Shao exited the quantum network and turned to look at Sorokin. He made up his mind and threw a punch at him. Sorokin reacted quickly and raised his arm to block this punch. Dong. There was not much force behind the punch, but it still produced a muffled sound, and a shock wave rippled out. Your Excellency Black Star, what's the meaning of this? Sorokin narrowed his eyes. I still don't believe you when you say you're neglecting your battle. I'm testing your reaction speed. Han Shao smiled and did not hide it. Sorokin frowned, then smiled and shook his head. As a Beyond Grade A, I still have this bit of reaction speed. If you were a pugilist, I wouldn't have been able to block this punch. Your Excellency Black Star, please don't scare me anymore. I'm really not your match. Alright, I was too rash. Sorry. Han Shao casually retracted his hand and pretended not to care. Seeing this, Sorokin heaved a sigh of relief. He did not expect Han Shao to not hesitate to offend him and attack him. He thought he was going to force a spar with him. However, Black Star only attacked once and stopped. He was a little surprised that Han Shao was so easy to talk to. Thinking about it, Sorokin understood. Black Star had once slaughtered his affiliated organizations. In his eyes, Black Star's character was swift and decisive. Although he was surprised that Black Star suddenly attacked, it matched the image of Han Xiao in his heart. However, he did not know that the combat information triggered by this attack was enough for Han Xiao to see his bottom line. Han Xiao quietly opened the interface, glanced at the combat notification, and his eyes narrowed. Indeed, I didn't guess wrong. This prick is indeed not simple. His level is a question mark. Back when I was level 280, Madison was a question mark. Now that I'm level 300, Sorokin's level is also a question mark. This guy's combat power is also at the peak beyond grade A level? He actually hid for so long, making all the beyond grade as think he's weak. What is he after? Han Xiaoxin thought quickly, and his eyes narrowed. Chapter 924. In the combat information, Sorokin's level was a question mark. Just like Madison, only a small portion of his abilities were revealed. Sorokin's strength was obvious from just a small portion of it. Sorokin was an Esper with the psychic ability, and almost all of the abilities he displayed were related to the mind. Han Xiao also saw a few special abilities and talents that strengthened his mind, such as invasion, reading, control, and so on. Body reconstruction, UI. If your body is destroyed, you can use your mind energy to reconstruct it. The current HP of the reconstructed body will be 30%. The body is the carrier of the soul and also the barrier. Multidimensional energy absorption. You can absorb multidimensional energy to replenish your energy. Soul Energy Foundation, unique talent. Your soul is like the cells of your body. It can also provide and store energy. Immortal. Your psionic resistance has been slightly increased. Swindler, Sorokin, unique talent. Plus 75% psionic Esper strength, plus 20% INT and MYS, plus 4 levels for all psionic skills. This effect can exceed the level limit. What a powerful ability! Han Xiaoxin's expression was a little grim. Immortal soul and body reconstruction could be regarded as divine skills for psionic espers. Normal psionic espers would die without a body, and their soul would continue to weaken. However, Sorokin's soul was a life of its own and did not need a carrier. This might be a change brought about by his race evolution. Based on these two abilities and the talent Immortal, Han Xiao had some guesses. Could it be that Sorokin had actually lived for a long time with different identities? No wonder there was so little information about him. If that's the case, his age is probably beyond my imagination. Han Xiao secretly raised his guard and cast a glance over. If it wasn't for the combat information, it would have been difficult for him to guess that Sorokin had such a secret based on Sorokin's low-key and cowardly style. This guy is very strong, but he puts himself in a very low position. He doesn't care about admitting defeat and likes to flatter others, so it's easy for others to look down on him. Although he's lived for a long time, he's completely different from Madison, who has a strong aura. He's a sly old fox. Han Xiaoxin muttered in his mind. Sorokin naturally didn't know that his identity had been exposed, nor did he know what Han Xiao was thinking. He didn't say anything for a while. The two of them walked in silence for a few minutes. Sorokin's expression suddenly changed when he received the good news from Lovell. A smile appeared on his face. Your Excellency Black Star, I wonder if you are willing to sell the evolutionary totem publicly? Han Xiao came back to his senses and raised his eyebrows. I'm fine with it. It's mainly up to the dynasty. Sigh, if the evolutionary totem can be sold to all civilizations, the market value of the Black Star core will be stabilized at an extremely high level. The profits from such a monopolistic business are too great. It's a pity that we can't cooperate. Sorokin's expression was filled with regret. Han Xiao smiled and did not reply. However, he felt that Sorokin's words had another meaning. After touring around the headquarters, the two of them parted ways. Han Xiao watched Sorokin return to his room and stood there for a few seconds before turning around and returning to his own office. After pondering for a while in the office, Han Xiao contacted Sylvia and ordered with a deep voice. Investigate the Limitless Financial Group's movements after entering the Shattered Star Ring. Understood. A few days later, the Black Star Party was held as scheduled. All the guests gathered in the banquet hall, and it was extremely lively. Han Xiao gave a simple speech, summarizing the results of the previous year's cooperation, and announced the start of the banquet amidst applause. There were emissaries from various civilizations and representatives from various cooperation organizations present. They were all partners of the Black Star Corps, and they were involved in many businesses. A few years ago, Han Xiao had decided on the Pan-Star Field Interest Union Plan. After a few years of development, the prototype was becoming more and more complete. These partners shared various business channels with the Army, allowing the Army to reach its current scale. This plan was one of the cornerstones of the Army's future development, and he attached great importance to it. Han Xiao was surrounded by groups of people, passionately chatting. Sylvia stood beside Han Xiao and handled the situation with ease. Laughter could be heard from the crowd from time to time. These representatives were very respectful, and the atmosphere was harmonious. In another corner of the banquet hall, Sorokin was also surrounded by some people. The Limitless Financial Group was the wealthiest group present, and it was extremely difficult to see Sorokin normally. Many people took this opportunity to come over and befriend him. Sorokin held his wine glass, smiling as he talked to the people around him while observing all the guests. Looking at the grand scene of the Black Star Party, his eyes had an inexplicable playfulness. At the same time, his possession consciousness descended into the bloodshed land and possessed a follower beside Lovell. The Tyrant's Party was held at the same time as the Black Star Party, but it was much quieter than the Black Star Corps. Only a few people were whispering, and most of them were focused on the wine and food. Although Heber was expressionless, looking at this scene, his mood was obviously not good. Lovell walked around the banquet hall with wine in hand. Suddenly, she saw a follower not far away give her a look. She immediately understood and knew that it was Sorokin. She quietly walked to the side with this follower. "What's the matter?" Lovell asked softly. "You will stay in the bloodshed land and be in charge of the financial group's work here. When the time comes, the financial group's resources here will be under your control." Sorokin nodded. "Okay." A look of surprise flashed across Lovell's eyes. Sorokin's children also had competition between them. For such an important task to be given to her, it meant that her father valued her greatly. Suppressing the excitement in her heart, Lovell asked softly, "What's the specific plan of action? Is there anything I need to pay special attention to?" "I'll give you the details later. To suppress the Black Star Corps' business, we have to start with his partners first." Sorokin smiled faintly. "I can see that Black Star is deliberately creating a huge net of benefits for his subordinate. Therefore, the first thing we have to do is to cut his net and break it up. We have to destroy the situation that Black Star has painstakingly built for more than 10 years. You don't need me to teach you how to do this, right?" "I understand." Lovell nodded. "When the financial group's resources are in place, you can start the operation." This year's gathering ended smoothly, and the guests all gained something. On the second day, Sorokin bid farewell and left. At the dock of the Army headquarters, Han Xiao watched as the Limitless Financial Group's fleet turned into a stream of light and disappeared into the depths of space. His brows were tightly furrowed, and a solemn expression appeared on his face. He left just like that. I really can't understand his intentions. Although he had seen through Sorokin's hidden strength and became more vigilant, he still had no idea what Sorokin was thinking. Han Xiao had a premonition that Sorokin was planning something in the dark. If the Black Star Corps encountered any abnormalities recently, it would definitely be Sorokin's doing. Furthermore, according to his probing, The other party's goal was most likely related to the evolutionary totem. Causing trouble. Han Xiao sighed. He had long known that the problem of the evolutionary totem would not be resolved so easily. As long as the outside world's demands were not met, there would be no peace. The dynasty had withstood the majority of the pressure, and the pressure from the Black Star Corps was about to arrive. If that's the case, it's best to stay in the dynasty's territory for a period of time and leave some apostle weapons and mechanical shells in the army headquarters. Han Xiao secretly made up his mind. He was still rather wary of the Radiant Federation's teleportation ability. Ta-ta-tar. At this moment, the sound of footsteps could be heard from behind him. Han Xiao did not need to turn around to know that it was Hela. Han Xiao, I have something to discuss with you. What is it? Han Xiao put away his distracting thoughts and looked at Hela's cold and exquisite face. I'm going to leave for a period of time. I'll have to trouble you to take care of Aurora. Han Xiao raised his brows. Where are you going? I'm going to train with Teacher Ames in another star field. I might not be able to be your Black Star Guards for the time being, Hela said softly. Han Xiao was surprised. Ames is going too? Yes, it was Teacher who invited me. Han Xiao stared at Hela for a while, and Hela also looked at him indifferently. After looking at each other for a while, a smile appeared on his face. All right, this is a good thing. I'll allow it. I'll take care of Aurora. Thank you. Hela nodded. There's no need to thank me between us. Han Xiao walked forward, pressed on Hela's shoulder, and said with a deep voice, I hope that when you return, you'll already be a beyond grade A super. You're really confident in me. Hela revealed a rare smile. After hesitating for a moment, she clenched her fist and lightly punched Han Xiao's chest. Take care of yourself too. Don't worry, I'll let Fu Ding be the temporary commander of the Black Star Guards. He's also very reliable. You can go without worry. It won't affect me. You? Hey, don't go. I'm not done yet. Watching Hela leave with an unfriendly expression, Han Xiao helplessly scratched his head and kept his expression. It was good to let Hela go out to train. There were very few chances for her to fight by his side. Gaining some experience would help her stimulate her potential and become a beyond grade A super. However, he did not expect that Ames would also go out to train. He heard that after losing to him 2 years ago, Ames had focused on training. Now, she was no longer staying at home. It seemed like she was really going to work hard. With Ames by her side, Hela's personal safety was guaranteed. However, Han Xiao still decided to equip their spaceship with some mechanical troops and mechanical shells as insurance. Since they're working hard, I can't stay idle either. Han Xiao entered the quantum network and asked Philip. How's the collection of energy training techniques coming along? Master Hum. I've already filtered out the more valuable options for you. Please check Hum. A list appeared before his eyes. They were all high-quality energy training techniques that could be bought in various galactic markets. They came from different races, civilizations, and super organizations. With just a glance, Han Xiao made his decision. Buy them all for me. Chapter 925. Being rich might not be the strongest ability, but it was definitely the most useful ability. The joy of having money was beyond one's imagination. After buying many energy training techniques, Han Xiao slowly invested his experience into them, allowing his energy to slowly grow. Time was wealth. Beyond grade as had long lifespans, and their long lifespans gave them plenty of time to learn more knowledge and technique. Every beyond grade A had a bunch of energy training technique. Han Xiao's actions were also a basic operation for beyond grade as. The time he needed to increase his energy was less than the other beyond grade as, but it was still a slow process. The next day, Han Xiao brought Aurora to the internal spaceport of the army to send Hela off. A black, reflective spaceship was docked at the dock. This was a high-grade spaceship that Han Xiao had given to Hela. Below the gangway that extended from the cabin door stood Hela, who had already changed out of her black Star Guard's uniform. Hela still had that cold expression on her face. Her long, red, curly hair was tied up with a hairband and draped all the way down to her waist. The fringe in front of her forehead and the hair on her temples were tidied up, making her look much more refreshed. She was wearing a dark red and black lightweight soft alloy battlesuit, which was similar to a trench coat. The tight-fitting black protective pants clung to her slender legs, looking a little like leather pants. These were all equipment that Han Shao had made for her. A small backpack was slung over her shoulder, making her look like a traveler. There were some medicines in the backpack, mainly the great tonics that Aurora had made. "Sister, when are you coming back?" Aurora had a look of reluctance. In the past few years, the two sisters had been together. Now that they were about to part, she was not used to it. "Wait for me to become a Beyond Grade A." Hela's lips curled up slightly as she glanced at Han Shao beside her. Aurora let out a disappointed, dragging out the last syllable. "How long will that take?" "You are my motivation. In order to come back and see you sooner, I will do my best." Hela patted Aurora's head. Aurora scratched her head helplessly and sighed. "Sigh, it's been so many years and you still treat me like a child." "In my heart, you'll always be a child that needs to be protected." Hela gently pinched Aurora's delicate cheeks as a trace of affection appeared in her eyes. Han Shao coughed dryly and interrupted. "I've equipped the spaceship with nano-repair robots. There are some decent mechanical equipment in the equipment box. I've also placed 2 mechanical bodies and some mechanical soldiers in the warehouse. If you need them, let me know and I'll activate them." "Yes," Hela responded. Unlike her previous life, she still preferred to be alone, but she did not reject the help of others. Although Ames will be working with you, since it's training, she won't purposely protect you. Furthermore, she's a Beyond Grade A. Some dangers are nothing to her, but they'll be fatal to you. Be careful. Han Shao reminded her. Calamity grades could already do whatever they wanted in the universe, but if they wanted to train, they would have to deliberately go to dangerous places. There were many such places in the universe, and danger was everywhere. For example, some experimental planets where civilizations were conducting biochemical experiments were filled with viruses, giant beasts, mutated organisms, and other dangers. Or they would go to hunt some powerful cosmic creatures. Even if they could not find a dangerous place, taking the initiative to challenge other experts was also a way to train. Hela nodded, indicating that she understood, but she did not think so in her heart. Only the edge of life and death could stimulate one's potential the most. Staying in the army, there were no life and death battles, so her progress would be slower and slower. The threshold of breaking through to Beyond Grade A was still far away. Ames might have just been acting on a whim, but she truly wanted to adventure and train. Han Shao was one of the few people she trusted. Only by entrusting Aurora to Han Shao did Hela feel at ease. Looking at the two of them one last time, Hela turned around and walked into the spaceship without any reluctance. The closed hatch covered her back. The next moment, the spaceship trembled, and the thrusters shot out orange-red flames that quickly turned blue. Hoo! The spaceship's speed soared, and it rushed out of the port. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a stream of hyperdrive and disappeared from sight. Sigh, I don't know how many years it'll take for my sister to come back. Beyond Grade A, how can it be so easy to reach? Aurora was not in a good mood, and she tugged at Han Zhao's clothes. Actually, I think it's quite easy. Han Zhao's mouth twitched. It's my fault. I shouldn't have asked you. Aurora rolled her eyes, stood on her tiptoes, and patted Han Zhao's shoulder. She pretended to sigh like an old man and said, "Teacher and sister have both left. Uncle, I only have you now. The work in the shattered star ring and the flickering world doesn't require me to be there personally. Due to some reasons, I'll have to leave soon and stay in the dynasty for a long time. It'll be safer if you come with me." Aurora hesitated. You're saying that the army will encounter danger here? Not necessarily, but some turmoil is inevitable. Got it. Wherever you go, I'll follow. By the way, can I become a Black Star Guard? You're too weak. Better not. Humph, stingy. Han Shao shook his head, turned around, and looked at the galaxy. I wonder how long it'll take for Hela to come back. When she comes back, I'll have another reliable ally. A few days later, Constellation Corridor, Red Empire Mother Planet, Ruler's Office. The remote projections of many dynasty upper echelons were gathered in the room. The chief commander of the Exploration Army, Terakov, was among them. A document with the dynasty's logo was placed on the table in front of Urinril. The content was written in the dynasty's language, and it was densely packed. Urinril quickly read through the document, and she soon flipped to the last page. She paused, picked up the pen beside her, and signed her name at the end of the document. The table flashed, and a human head made of digital modules appeared. A deep male electronic voice sounded. Dynasty Ruler Authority confirmed. The Flickering World Constitution has been signed. Effective immediately. Every advanced civilization had to make use of the powerful computing power of a virtual artificial intelligence. The three universal civilizations all had their own core artificial intelligences, which had been perfected by generations of virtual mechanics and scientists. The Red Empire's core artificial intelligence had the backup memories of every dynasty ruler and the elites in its database. Together with the virtual artificial intelligence itself, it formed a pan-civilization elite consciousness called Heroic Soul. Urinril put down the pen, passed the document to the secretary beside her, and slowly said, "In 3 days, announce to the entire universe that the first phase of the Flickering World has been successfully developed. May the dynasty last forever. May the dynasty last forever." The various dynasty upper echelons replied in unison. This was a slogan passed down from the exploration era, and its meaning was roughly the same as God Bless XX. Inform the allied organizations that participated in the development that it's time to divide the territories and officially start the first phase of development of the 3-star clusters. Urinril said with a deep voice, "Before the construction is completed, the second phase of development will not begin." In the logistics department of the army, Han Shao, who was supervising Nero's learning, received a communication request from Terakov. He had a premonition. Opening the communicator, Tarakov's old face appeared. Black Star, Ruler Urinril, has already signed the decree and will soon announce to the entire universe that the first phase of the development of the Flickering World has been completed. She told me to inform you that the territories that the dynasty's upper echelons have decided to give to our allies have been decided. It's finally here. I've been waiting for this moment for a long time. Han Shao felt energized. I'm listening. Continue. The territories will be distributed according to the contribution of the exploration. The allies that joined later will only be able to get a few star zones, at most 1 star system. Bloodshedland, the Klent Kingdom, and you were the first to join, so the dynasty will give you more territory. The 3-star clusters that were explored in the first phase were the gateway to the Flickering World, and they would basically fall into the control of the dynasty and its allies. A star cluster had dozens of star systems. A star system might not seem like a lot, but it was actually very large. After all, the territory of a star system civilization was only a star system, and some were even smaller than an entire star system. Han Shao nodded and asked, "How much exactly will they give us?" Bloodshedland will be given about 2 star systems, and because of the secret war, Klent will be given 4 star systems. Their territories are all in the Renault star cluster. What about me? Han Shao was curious. The Black Star Corps' exploration results were the best, and you made a huge contribution yourself. Ruler Urinril treated you very well, and the dynasty has decided to give you. Terakov smiled. A total of 7 star systems. Han Zhao's eyes sparkled. 7 star systems? That was equivalent to 10 to 20% of the Geras star cluster's territory. And this was only the first phase's territory. Just this starting point alone was a few times higher than any other star system civilization. Furthermore, Terakov smiled. Ruler Uranril did not forget her promise to you. The territories of the others have already been allocated, and you can choose the 7 star systems of the Black Star Core. I didn't work for nothing. Han Xiaoxin was in a good mood. Until now, the Black Star Corps did not have a true base, and their headquarters and many divisions were in other people's territories. There were not many empty spots left in the explored universe, and even many desolate universe belts belonged to them. Now, Han Xiaoxin had finally obtained his own autonomous territory. A portion of the territory of an entire star cluster would be given to his allies, a portion would be controlled by the dynasty, and a portion would be made public for the other organizations to fight over. After dividing the star cluster layer by layer, Han Xiaoxin was able to obtain close to 1/5 of the star cluster's territory. Han Xiao guessed that the army would be split into 3 or 4 star systems, which was already a huge profit. However, the dynasty valued his contribution so much that they gave him 7 star systems with a wave of their hand. There were close to 100 star zones in total, and he could even choose his own location. The dynasty was really generous. P.S. System maintenance. The entire internet is flooded with crabs. This chapter's comments will not be restored until the 6th. Chapter 926. The blue star map floated in front of Han Xiao, showing the general situation of the Geras star cluster. Most of the areas were marked in green, representing the star systems that could be chosen. Han Xiao looked at the star map thoughtfully. The blue light of the star map shone on his face. Beside him, Tarakov's remote projection was also looking at the star map with a smile. Have you made a decision? Of course, but I have a question. After the first exploration phase, the dynasty has already figured out the resource distribution of every star system. Although you've allowed me to choose, I've chosen different star systems, so your attitude will be different, right? Han Xiao turned around and glanced at him. I know what you mean. You're worried that if the star systems you choose are all strategic and resource-rich, the dynasty won't have any objections, right? Terakov shook his head and laughed. Don't worry. Since the dynasty is willing to give it to you, we're not afraid of your appetite. The dynasty won't be so stingy. That's good. Han Xiao nodded. Furthermore, the ruler told me to tell you. Tarakov's eyes flashed, and he said with deep meaning, that the more important the star systems you choose, the better. Because I'm a member of the ruler's faction? Han Xiao was interested. That might be one of the reasons. How about this? I'll tell you some insider information. Actually, not everyone in the upper echelons of the dynasty agreed to give you 7 star systems. Some of them felt that the important areas should be controlled by the dynasty and should not be given to any allies. Ruler Uranril went against the majority and took out the areas that the dynasty should control in the Geras star cluster for you to choose from. According to her, since you've made a promise, you shouldn't play tricks with your allies. That will only disappoint your allies. She's right. It seems like the ruler is quite considerate of me. Han Xiao nodded with a smile. The ruler suggested that you take control of some strategic areas, but there's another reason. She hopes that you'll have more authority and a higher position in the dynasty, indirectly suppressing some of the disharmonious voices in the dynasty. You know what's going on, Terakov said. Upon hearing this, Han Xiao understood that they were talking about the evolution cube. When a beyond grade A ally had a strategic universal treasure, such conflicts were bound to occur. For example, Cisco had always been under pressure from the Arcane Church. There were people in the dynasty who hoped that he would voluntarily hand over the evolution cube, and Han Xiao had heard of this before. However, in front of the rules of a universal civilization and his own achievements, this voice was very weak. It was impossible to force an ally to hand over a universal treasure. A universal civilization would not do such a thing, but even so, the desire of some people in the dynasty for the evolution cube would not disappear. Uranril wants to increase my authority, and the other factions that covet the evolution cube do not want me to have too important a position. This will make it harder for them to suppress me. From another perspective, this is a battle between factions in the dynasty. Thinking of this, Han Xiaoxin felt helpless. He did not want to be involved in the dynasty's internal political battles, but he had no choice. Anything of value was a bargaining chip in the eyes of these dynasty factions, and his beyond grade A allies were no exception. Since they saw him as an important bargaining chip, there was nothing he could do. No matter what they think, I'll just develop myself. Han Xiao shook his head and tapped on the star map 7 times. I want these 7 star systems. Terekov took a look and his eyes flashed. He laughed and said, "You really don't know how to be polite. You're the one who told me not to be polite." Han Xiao shrugged. He had chosen all the important star systems in the Geras star cluster. 2 of the star systems were the gateways to 2 other star clusters nearby, and they were strategic choke points. Another 2 star systems were the transit areas of the future Geras star cluster, and they were very prosperous. The last 3 star systems were at the center of the star cluster, and they were the places with the most resources. All right, I'll report this to the ruler. The construction will begin very soon, so make your preparations. I'll be leaving now. Terekov then cut off the communication, and the remote projection disappeared. Han Xiao retracted his gaze, stared at the 7 lit areas on the star map, and slowly exhaled. 7 star systems. This will be my territory in the future. A few days later, the Red Empire announced to the entire universe that the first phase of the development of the flickering world had been a success. All along, there had been countless eyes on the development of the flickering world. The new star field was both the territory of the Red Empire and the wealth of the entire universe. If the development went smoothly, the reputation of the dynasty would increase to a certain extent. This news made many organizations excited, especially many financial groups. When the dynasty was developing the flickering world, they had already released the news that the financial groups would be allowed to participate in the development of the first phase. Although there were too many people and too little meat, and only the large financial groups would be able to obtain the entry ticket, this was still a profitable business. Furthermore, every ally organization was a good target for investment. In the dynasty's announcement, the territories that the various allies had obtained were listed. Among them, the Black Star Corps was at the top of the list with 7 star systems, far surpassing the second-place Klent with 4 star systems. The various galactic organizations were all shocked. They could all feel the importance that the dynasty placed on Black Star. That made sense. Black Star was still very young, and he would be the pillar of the dynasty for the next few hundred or 1,000 years. The dynasty could not afford to neglect him. After the announcement was made, the various financial groups began to take action. They went around contacting the allies of the dynasty, and the Black Star Army was the most popular among the financial groups. In just a short period of time, countless financial groups sent Philip a request for cooperation. Although the 7 star systems were huge, there were too many financial groups that had their eyes on the flickering world. The financial groups invested for profit, and their territory was limited. They could not cooperate with everyone. Han Xiao personally screened out some financial groups with limited strength before sending people to negotiate with the large financial group. This was a huge project. Han Xiao asked Sylvia to transfer clerks from the various departments to form various small groups to negotiate with the different financial groups and discuss the details of the cooperation. The specific cooperation method was for the financial groups to take out cash to invest, purchase various resources and engineering equipment, and help the investors to build territories. The investors had to promise that after the flickering world was opened up in the future, these financial groups would have the right to operate or mine certain planets, as well as the convenience of various businesses. Therefore, according to the different businesses of each financial group, the cooperation terms were very different. There were countless derivative rights that extended from the jurisdiction. Other than actual planets, there were many things that could be traded. Because the territory was completely under their jurisdiction, they could basically do all the trades that the civilizations could do. Furthermore, they did not have the burden of their citizens, so there was even less pressure. Although Han Shao was wary of Sorokin, the two of them had previously reached a preliminary agreement. Therefore, in the spirit of keeping his promise, he sent a message to Sorokin to ask about it and quickly set the terms of the cooperation. However, the investment amount of the other party was far lower than Han Shao had expected. This doesn't make sense. The Limitless Financial Group only invested so little. Why does it seem like they don't care about it at all? In the Army Commander's office, Han Shao browsed through the terms of the contract with a strange expression. Sylvia, I previously asked you to investigate the whereabouts of the Limitless Financial Group. Have you found anything? After the Limitless Financial Group entered the Shattered Star Ring, they sent another team to participate in the Tyrant's party. If I'm not wrong, the Limitless Financial Group is looking for investment target. They only invested a small amount of money in us symbolically and focused on Bloodshed Land. Han Shao was puzzled. That's strange. The territory that I've been allocated is more than 3 times that of Heber. Sorokin's focus is actually on Heber? Could it be that Heber gave him extremely generous terms? After thinking for a few seconds, Han Shao did not dwell on this matter. There were plenty of financial groups eyeing this opportunity, and he had plenty of options. It was fine if the Limitless Financial Group was not willing to cooperate with him. What he did not lack the most at the moment was partners. After dealing with the matters at hand, Han Shao put down the communicator, opened the interface, and looked at the mission panel. The first round of the Flickering World main storyline mission was to explore the Geru star cluster. When the Red Empire announced the success of the first phase, the first round of the mission was displayed as completed and could be settled at any time. The players also had this main storyline mission, but it could only be settled when the version update was completed and they went online again. Han Shao browsed through the mission description. He had accumulated a huge amount of exploration points, and his mission rating had already reached the highest. After a few years of exploration, I've finally completed the first round of this S+ main storyline mission. Han Shao mumbled to himself. With such a high mission rating, the contribution points rewarded should be enough to exchange for the last ultimate knowledge. As he spoke, he chose to end the mission. Flickering World. First round completed. Your mission rating is S+. You have received 2 billion EXP, random reward X3, 3000 Red Empire contribution points, and 2 blank character summon cards. Explorer milestone activated. Milestone activation requirements. Obtain at least 3 grade A exploration ratings in the Flickering World mission chain. Current progress. 1/3 Inchio, a milestone mission. Han Shao raised his brows. This kind of milestone mission would give a special title or legendary point. Some titles were just for show, while others had additional bonuses. Han Shao remembered that he still had a legendary hunter milestone that he had not completed yet. The effect of that title was to increase the damage dealt to beast-type creatures, and Explorer seemed to increase the drop rate of dungeons and random rewards. The highest mission rating gave him 2 billion EXP as a reward. This was nothing to him, but to the players at level 120, it was enough to level up many times. Under the standard of the version, this reward was already very generous. The rewards of 20 to 30 billion EXP that Han Xiao had done were basically at the level of a beyond grade A. Compared to the difficulty of the flickering world, this reward was already very high. The second round of the flickering world also popped up. The requirement was to complete the construction of all the infrastructure in the Black Star Corps' territory. This main storyline mission itself was very flexible. The specific requirements would change according to the faction and the actual situation. The Flickering World mission requirements for Han Xiao and the army players were based on the Red Empire and the Black Star Corps. The second round was to build their own territory, so Han Xiao was not surprised. Unfortunately, the players had all gone offline and missed this round of the mission. After letting his thoughts wander for a while, Han Xiao cleared his mind and looked at the faction relationship tab. The most useful reward for him was the 3,000 contribution points from the dynasty. Including this, his contribution points had exceeded 12,000, enough to exchange for the last ultimate knowledge. I'm finally going to gather all the ultimate knowledges. Han Xiao let out a long sigh. At the same time, in the Bloodshed Land, after the Limitless Financial Group and Heber reached a cooperation agreement, Lovell became a permanent emissary in the Bloodshed Land, and Sorokin passed her secret orders through possessing her. Not long after the dynasty announced the territories of the various allies, Lovell contacted Sorokin and expressed her shock. The dynasty is treating the Black Star Corps too well. A total of 7 star systems. Father, is it really okay for us to not focus on investing in the Black Star Corps? Sorokin also frowned. He knew that the dynasty valued the Black Star Corps, but the dynasty's generosity was still a little beyond his expectations. The Black Star Corps had gathered more wealth and popularity than expected, which was not good for their plan. TSK, those dynasty factions that cooperated with me, said that they would work internally to prevent the Black Star Corps from getting too many good territories. Now, it seems that they have failed, allowing the Black Star Corps to have so much space to develop. Isn't this just making it harder for me to suppress them? My teammates this time are useless. Chapter 927. Just as he was cursing in his mind, he saw the hesitation on Lovell's face. Only then did Sorokin relax his brows and calmly say, "Forget it. Forget it, this is only the first phase of development. Although it is a little unexpected, compared to our deal with the 3 universal civilizations, this amount of profit is not worth mentioning. While the Bloodshed Land does not have many territories, it is still valuable. We will focus on investing here, and there is no need to compete with more financial groups on Black Star's side." Lovell pursed her lips and nodded. Sorokin paused, narrowed his eyes, and slowly said, "With such a large territory, the Black Star Army will have more space to develop, and their ability to resist pressure will increase. However, this is not entirely a bad thing for us. The Army's focus will be shifted to the Flickering World, so they will neglect their businesses in the Shattered Star Ring. This will make it easier for us to weaken their original businesses. Therefore, we will first attack the Black Star Corps' interest network in the Shattered Star Ring. We will not be able to shake the core business of the Black Star Corps, so we have to start from the various industry partners of the Army, help the Black Star Corps snatch a portion of their business channels, cut off the tentacles that the Black Star Corps has in various industries, and try to shrink their scale of operations. This will make it difficult for the Black Star Corps to expand and develop comfortably." Lovell hesitated for a moment before softly saying, "Father, the Black Star Corps has a bright future, and their business is growing by the day. To be honest, this method will not be able to shake the Black Star Corps. Of course, I know that. A beyond grade A organization is not that easy to suppress. Furthermore, the rise of the Black Star Corps is difficult to stop. However, it is precisely because it is difficult that those people came to me to cooperate. As long as we are willing to pay the cost, we will be able to take it one step at a time." Sorokin shook his head with a calm expression. Furthermore, I am not doing this to overthrow the Black Star Corps, but to make the Black Star feel as uncomfortable as possible. It will take a long time to see results, so we can just take it slow. Since those people who are cooperating with me are not in a hurry, I won't be in a hurry either." While the two of them were plotting, on the other side of the bloodshed land, Heber was also reading the plan that Lovell had given him in the palace and nodding. The plan included the Limitless Financial Group's support plan for the bloodshed land. The goal was for the bloodshed land to learn from the Black Star Corps and complete the transformation of their organization. Not only would they be armed and hired, but they would also expand their business in various industries. The bloodshed land did not need to set up these channels from scratch. What they were eyeing were the channels that the local organizations in the Shattered Star Ring had been operating for many years. They seized them through acquisition and other means, and most of the costs were borne by the Limitless Financial Group. Seeing the investment amount of the Limitless Financial Group at the bottom of the proposal, Heber snorted. So rich. The Black Star Corps had been very busy recently. The consortiums that passed the preliminary selection sent people to discuss cooperation. A large number of the Army's civilian staff formed negotiation teams and contacted different consortiums remotely. Dillard, the leader of the 098 negotiation team, was currently leading his team to negotiate with the senior management team of a large financial group. He was reading the other party's request for cooperation. "Mr. Dillard, this is the third time we've modified the terms of cooperation according to your wishes. Are you satisfied?" The senior management of the financial group quietly sized up Dillard's expression. "You want 15-year mining rights on at least 10 resource-rich planets, management rights and surface modification rights on 3 ordinary planets, operation rights on 2 regional quantum network channels, and priority sales channels for dozens of rare resources. Don't you think the investment amount is not worthy of this request?" Dillard raised his eyebrows and said with a smile that was not a smile, "After our calculations, the current investment amount is equivalent to our request. Are you trying to take advantage of the Black Star Corps? If you're not sincere, then forget about it. We still have many candidates, and we don't have time to waste with you." Dillard's tone sank, and he was about to end the communication. "Wait." The senior management of the financial group was shocked and hurriedly said, "Don't misunderstand, we don't have such thoughts. If there's anything you're not satisfied with, we can discuss it again." Appreciating the other party's cautious look, Dillard's face was expressionless, but he was secretly pleased. In the Black Star Corps, he was just an ordinary civilian with a limited salary. In the Galactic Society, whether it was status or assets, he was far inferior to the senior management of the financial groups opposite him. However, these rich and powerful senior management of the financial groups now had to curry favor with a small employee like him. Dillard had never enjoyed such treatment before. Now, countless financial groups were begging to cooperate with the Black Star Corps. As the negotiator of the Black Star Corps, he firmly held the initiative. With power in his hands, he was confident. If he had not joined the Black Star Corps early on, he would not be where he was today. He would not be able to make these arrogant financial groups bow to him. In order to satisfy his vanity, and at the same time, to obtain more benefits for the army, Dillard liked to manipulate his negotiation partners. He would never relent without making things difficult a few times. It was very bureaucratic. Dillard knew that this was using the name of the Black Star Corps to intimidate others, but he was happy to do so. His boss was so powerful, it would be a pity if he did not show off. He might not have the chance to do so in the future. The senior management of the financial groups opposite him knew what Dillard was doing. He was furious, but there was nothing he could do. The party that was begging for cooperation was in a passive position to begin with. He would rather suffer a little than miss the rare opportunity to cooperate with the Black Star Corps. Black Star Corps Headquarters, Army Commander's Office. The finger-sized projection of Philip sat on the edge of the table with his legs swinging. He looked up at Han Xiao and reported in a crisp voice. Investigation complete. 45 negotiators accepted bribes during the negotiation process. Fire all of them, cancel all the cooperation agreements they negotiated, and no longer cooperate with these financial groups. Han Xiao frowned. The size of the army was too large. It was inevitable that some people would be selfish and use the benefits of the army to exchange for personal benefit. He did not mind the members of the army using the name of the army to show off, but if someone betrayed the interests of the army, he would not agree. As a virtual mechanic, the entire army was under his surveillance. No one could secretly take bribes under his nose. After dealing with this annoying matter, Han Xiao rubbed his eyes. Just as he was about to go to the training room to complete his energy training technique for the day, his communicator suddenly vibrated. Picking up the communicator, Han Xiao's eyes lit up, and a smile appeared on his face. The dynasty has finally approved my exchange application. With his contribution points accumulated to more than 12,000, Han Xiao had submitted an application to the dynasty to exchange for the last ultimate knowledge a few days ago. In just a few years, Black Star had made so many contributions that it was enough to exchange for all the ultimate knowledges. His efficiency was probably the fastest in history. The greatest attraction of a universal civilization to a beyond grade A was ultimate knowledge. Now that Han Xiao had gathered all the mechanic ultimate knowledges, the Red Empire was hesitant, and the approval process was much longer than before. However, the dynasty would not go back on its word. At this time, Han Xiao received the last mechanic ultimate knowledge from the Red Empire Control Branch. Hyperspace Theory. Beyond grade A mages could travel through the various secondary dimensions, and this mechanic ultimate knowledge could achieve a similar effect. As a more profound spacetime technology, it could be used in many aspects such as Stargate construction, interstellar navigation, warp jump engines, and the new generation of thrusters. In terms of combat, this ultimate knowledge tended to increase the mobility of machinery. At the same time, it was suitable for various space-type devices, which could be used to attack and defend. With this ultimate knowledge, the difficulty of becoming a mechanic increased by more than one level. Its biggest use was to make up for the core weakness of a mechanic. However, Han Xiao was an anomaly, and it would be good if he did not become a mechanic. Therefore, this ultimate knowledge had always been at the bottom of his list. Because it was a class knowledge, there was no triple learning penalty. Every level only required 8 potential points, which was just enough to complete the class advancement mission, the Erudite. After learning this, I'll have gathered all the ultimate knowledges. All that's left is to slowly level them up. Han Xiaoxin made up his mind and chose to learn it. Mechanic ultimate knowledge detected. Hyperspace theory. Use 8 potential points to learn it? Learning, successfully learned. You have learned hyperspace theory. You have received the talent, hyperspace thinking. You have learned all the ultimate knowledges. The effect of your talent, ultimate knowledge holder, has been enhanced. You have learned all the class knowledges. You have received the talent, omnipotent mechanic. Hyperspace thinking. The performance of space-type devices has been enhanced. Control effects have been greatly enhanced. Control duration has been extended by 50% to 100%. Your domain skills have been enhanced. Your space skills have been enhanced. Plus 20% mobility of all mechanical equipment. Plus 40% mental resistance. Ultimate knowledge holder has been enhanced. Original effect. Plus 15% to 25% machinery affinity, plus 150% to 600% machinery affinity. New effect. Plus 1 to all mechanic class skill levels, can break through the upper limit. Omnipotent mechanic. Plus 20% machinery affinity, plus 2 to all mechanic class skill levels, can break through the upper limit. You have received an additional 1,500 INT and 500 free attribute point. Bonus effect I, plus 1% machinery affinity for every 20 INT. Bonus effect 2, passive aura, plus 200 INT to all lifeforms around you. Chapter 928. As the last piece of the puzzle was completed, the world in front of him seemed to have undergone a subtle change, and his perception of space had undergone a transformation. Han Xiao raised his head and looked at the cup on the table. All sorts of functions and formulas seemed to have appeared at the corners of the cup, and after removing the superfluous appearance, only precise lines were left to outline the spatial structure of the cup. Looking around, the same thing happened to all the items in the room. Everything in the room had more than one form of existence in the spatial structure. After blinking his eyes, this perception slowly dissipated, and his vision returned to normal. This is the change brought about by hyperspace thinking. It has raised my spatial perception to a whole new level. Han Xiao calmed himself down. The feeling just now was as if he was maintaining the perspective of multiple dimensions at the same time. Hyperspace theory only provided one talent, but the effect was very impressive. It increased his mobility and control skills, as well as some mental resistance. The other two talents were important talents that came from learning all the knowledge. Normally, players would not be able to afford the cost of all the class knowledges, so it would be very difficult for them to learn all of them. However, the Liver Emperor was not an ordinary person. In the later versions of his previous life, there were also mechanics who had learned all the knowledge, and Han Xiao was one of them. Thus, he was not unfamiliar with the powerful effects of these two talents. With these two talents, my strength has increased by a level. I can be considered a complete high-level mechanic. Han Xiaoxin was overjoyed. He secretly estimated that the strengthened ultimate knowledge holder and the newly added omnipotent mechanic had increased his strength by a level. His strength under normal conditions had already reached the level after activating perfect mechanical sense. The higher his machinery affinity, the greater the increase in the mechanical sense talent. As long as he completely obtained a perfect mechanical sense, everything would be complete. At that time, his mechanic class abilities would only be lacking a unique talent compared to Mechanic Emperor Manison, and the difference would not be too far. Now that I've obtained all the class knowledges, all that's left is to level up the knowledges. Han Xiao smiled. In his previous life, there might have been players who had learned all the knowledge, but no one had ever maxed out all the knowledge. This was Han Xiao's goal. To achieve this, he would need a huge amount of EXP. The EXP he had accumulated in this version was far from enough. He could only continue working hard in the next version. In his previous life, no one had ever accomplished this feat, so Han Xiao did not know if there would be any additional rewards if he maxed out all his class knowledges. No matter what, there was a huge player market. Maxing out all his class knowledges was a path that he had to take. It was definitely a profitable one. There were also an additional 500 free attribute points in his interface. Han Xiao looked at his own attribute. His intelligence had finally broken through the 10,000 mark. Intelligence was the main attribute of a mechanic. It was related to the attributes of machinery, the power of mechanical force bonuses, the efficiency of machinery control, and the damage output of machinery. Currently, he did not lack endurance. He was so tanky that even he could not stand it. Han Xiao continued to add all his points into intelligence. After looking at his attributes twice, Han Xiaoxin was satisfied. He closed the interface and ate 2 highly concentrated nutrition bars to celebrate. He then took a private spaceship and came to one of the satellites in the headquarters alone. He found an empty large open-air training ground, opened the secondary dimensional army box, and released all the mechanical lives. After many years of accumulation, Han Shao now had more than 100,000 mechanical lives under his command. More than 10 apostle weapons were the leaders, and they lined up in front of Han Shao. In the huge square there were all kinds of mechanical lives. They stopped playing and looked at Han Shao. Those with legs knelt on one knee, and those without legs lowered their heads to show respect. It was a grand scene. "Lord, get up." Han Shao raised his hand, looked at Psionic Prime, and said with a deep voice, "The time has come. The mechanical civilization plan I mentioned can be implemented now. I will not disappoint the Lord." Psionic Prime's mechanical facial features showed a determined expression. Han Shao raised his finger, and a virtual screen appeared in the sky, showing the star map of the Geru star cluster. The image was quickly enlarged and locked onto a planet in one of the star systems. It was located in his territory. "This planet will be your new home in the future. It has rich ores and metal resources. Psionic Prime, you can stay there with all the mechanical lives to develop. I will have the army provide you with resources. I only have one request for you, and that is to expand as much as possible and increase your population." Because he wanted to develop his mechanical civilization, Han Shao released all the mechanical lives. They did not need to stay in the secondary dimensional army box for the time being. After being modified by Tinder Awakening, the mechanical lives were no longer inanimate objects. Their bodies were filled with silicon-based nerve fibers, and they had independent thoughts. At the same time, they also had the ability to reproduce. The reproduction method of the mechanical lives was not clanking but asexual reproduction. 2 or more mechanical lives would extract their own Tinder genetic code and pass it on to the assembly line or carefully assembled mechanical lives to incubate newborns. After a long period of energy supply, the Tinder of the newborns would be strengthened and they would grow into complete mechanical lives. The mechanical lives created through this method of reproduction would share the life energy of the first-generation mechanical lives. The purity and basic attributes of the bloodline would naturally be far inferior to the first-generation mechanical lives. The first-generation mechanical lives that completed reproduction would also enter a period of weakness due to the huge consumption of their source energy. However, the advantage was that they could mass-produce newborns, and Han Shao did not need to spend a lot of effort to convert them. The production efficiency would increase by millions of times. Even the weakest mechanical life would have a much higher growth rate than mechanical soldiers. This was also the original intention of developing the mechanical civilization, to form a large-scale arsenal. Manison had the mechanical civilization that had been developed for many years as an army camp, and there would be an endless supply of soldiers. With these 100,000 mechanical lives, as long as they develop for a few years, I will be able to have a new mechanical life army. Han Shao thought to himself. All the mechanical lives looked up at the virtual screen. Looking at the 3D projection of this planet, there was a commotion. "I will not disappoint you." Psionic Prime retracted his gaze and simulated a solemn tone. Recommend another person with outstanding abilities. I will give him the slot to create an apostle weapon." Han Shao smiled. The 2 new talents gave him a +3 bonus to his mechanical skills, which meant that he had 3 more slots for apostle life creation. He could create new apostle weapons. Letting Psionic Prime choose one of them was to help him solidify his position as the leader. Han Shao would not keep an eye on the development of the mechanical civilization, so he needed Psionic Prime to manage it for him. The stronger his position as the spokesperson, the smoother the development of the mechanical civilization would be. Hearing that, Psionic Prime raised his spear and pointed behind him. "Heaven-suppressing banner, come out." Han Shao looked in the direction the spear was pointing at and saw a huge mechanical life covered in heavy armor walk out from the crowd. It seemed to be wearing battle armor, and there were all kinds of weapons on its body. It had 6 arms, one on its shoulders, one on its back, and one on its waist. There was a huge alloy shield on its back that looked like a huge black flag. He's the bravest warrior in our race who's best at fighting. He defeated hundreds of our people, and took all kinds of weapons. At the same time, he also knows how to lead an army. He's very outstanding. Your Excellency, please grant him the right to become an apostle, Psionic Prime said. Han Shao sized up the heaven-suppressing banner. The various mechanical equipment on this fellow were the spoils of war that he obtained from defeating his opponents. These mechanical lives all had very high growth rate. With the blessing of machinery fusion, Grant, they were able to modify their own hardware structure. Many of the functions of these mechanical lives were no longer limited to the mechanical models before they were awakened. You have the right to become my apostle. Use this power well. Han Shao raised his hand, and a bright golden mechanical force appeared on his palm like a thundercloud. With a flip of his hand, this mechanical force shot into the heaven-suppressing banner's body, modifying it and creating a new apostle. Han Shao did not look at the transformation process of the heaven-suppressing banner and turned to Psionic Prime. I'll leave the command of the mechanical lives to you for the time being. Help me do something first. Planet Black Spirit. After being modified by the evolution cube a few years ago, the current Black Spirit race was even more intelligent and agile. They had gained visual senses and gradually got used to living on the ground, no longer living in their nest. Under the highly efficient command of the mental network, they built stone cities one after another. The largest stone city belonged to the Germinal tribe. In the middle of the city was a tall stone statue that was the sculpture of Black Star. At this moment, a metal cylinder was placed at the top of the statue. It was the evolutionary totem. An endless stream of evolution energy radiated out. To species with room for evolution, the totem was extremely effective. The evolution process of the Black Spirit race was condensed hundreds of times. The current appearance of the Black Spirit race was different from a few years ago. The proportion of their shells to their bodies had shrunk again, and the characteristics of insects and beasts had decreased greatly. Furthermore, a portion of the Black Spirit race gradually stopped crawling and stood upright. Although their backs were still very hunched, they already had the embryonic form of an upright creature. Their forelimbs gradually played the role of palms, and they began to learn how to use tools. Until now, Han Shao had not advanced the civilization of the Black Spirit race. He was more focused on improving the quality of the Black Spirit race. The way he saw it, as long as the race itself was perfected, it would be much easier to help the Black Spirit race develop. The racial characteristic of the Black Spirit race was the mental communication network, which increased the efficiency of communication and the spread of knowledge. The racial potential leaned toward the mind, and the totem subtly increased the mental power of the entire race. The reproductive ability of the Black Spirit race was also very strong. After more than a decade of reproduction, they had already given birth to a few generations of newborns, and their population had increased by a lot. At this moment, in the center of the Germinal tribe, a large group of young Black Spirit race members were playing around an adult. This adult was the leader of the Germinal tribe. The current leader of the Germinal tribe was wearing a crude animal skin robe and holding a simple scepter made of prophecy stone in his hand. This was completely different from the other members of the Black Spirit race. Most of them did not wear clothes. After being modified by the evolution cube a few years ago, the Black Spirit race had given birth to a very small number of mutants that could build a mental communication network on their own and replace the prophecy stone as the server. Thus, these mutants had obtained very high status in the race and were respectfully called sages. The leader of the Germinal tribe was the strongest mutant among them, and his mental network could accommodate the most individuals. At the same time, he was the spokesperson of the Black Star God, so he was called the Great Sage by his people. Great Sage, Why do we have to worship the Black Star God? A group of young Black Spirit race members surrounded the leader of the Germinal tribe and chattered in the mental network. The leader of the Germinal tribe tapped his scepter on the ground, and with a serious expression, he fervently built up faith for his descendants. Black Star God brought us the gospel of evolution, the fire of our civilization. He is an omnipotent existence. I don't believe it. I feel that the great sage is more powerful than the Black Star God. A group of young Black Spirit race members laughed. Humph, you know nothing about power. The leader of the Germinal tribe used his scepter to point at a battleship floating in the sky. Do you see that? That thing is called a spaceship. It is the one that brought us here from our distant homeland. If we relied on ourselves, we would not be able to return even after 10 million years. However, the spaceships owned by the Black Star God can fill the entire sky and tear apart the solid ground in an instant. That is the true power of a god. Homeland? Isn't this our homeland? Sigh, our homeland has long been taken away. If not for the Black Star God bringing us away, perhaps we would have already. The leader of the Germinal tribe sighed and shook his head. At this time, hundreds of small black dots appeared in the blue sky. They were all spaceships, and they slowly stopped above the Germinal tribe. Instantly, it caused a commotion among the Black Spirit race. Many of them gathered in the square and looked up at the descending spaceships. The cabin door opened, and Psionic Prime flew out and landed in front of the leader of the Germinal tribe. The surrounding Black Spirit race members dispersed, but they were not nervous. In their eyes, these metal creatures were the servants of the Black Star God. I am the chief apostle of the Lord. The Black Star God ordered me to bring you away from this planet. The leader of the Germinal tribe stood up and spoke with his voice that had yet to fully evolve. Where is the Black Star God bringing us? A new homeland. With the investment of a large number of financial groups, the Black Star Corps had sufficient funds to purchase large amounts of construction equipment and prepare for the construction of the army. The process was very smooth and there were no setbacks. After preparing for almost a month, under the attention of the entire universe, the construction team of the army finally set off, bringing manpower and resources to the construction site in the flickering world. Lagi, Reynold, Sylvia, and Haluz were in charge of the construction work. Han Shao was only responsible for remote supervision because he had to hide in the dynasty for a while. He had already left behind the blueprint of the construction site, so there was no need for him to be there personally. On the day the construction team of the Black Star Corps set off, Han Shao arrived at the Stargate to the Central Galaxy. Only Aurora and a group of Black Star Guards accompanied him. On one hand, this trip was to hide for a while. On the other hand, Han Shao also planned to visit the various Beyond Grade A allies of the dynasty. After all, he would have to deal with them for many years to come, so it was a good opportunity to get closer to them. At the same time, he was also prepared to meet all the famous people of the dynasty in the future. After the version update, the middle-level authority of the dynasty would undergo a new iteration. He still had a long way to go before working with the dynasty, so he had to look further. For the sake of the future, he had to build a good relationship with the powerful people in the future and make a long-term plan for the future. Glancing at Fu Ding and the others, Han Shao turned to look at Aurora in the pilot's seat and nodded. Let's go. Hearing that, Aurora swiped her finger on the control screen, and the spaceship slowly entered the Stargate. At the same time, Ames and Hella's spaceship also arrived at the Stargate at the edge of the shattered star ring. Looking back in the direction of the shattered star ring, Hella had complicated feelings. She had a feeling that she would not be able to return for a long time. Beyond Grade A at this moment, a slender hand pressed on her shoulder. Hella looked up and saw Ames smiling at her. Let's go. Phew, got it. Hella put away her thoughts, pushed the control stick, and the spaceship disappeared into the Stargate vortex. Chapter 929. Flickering World, Purple River Star System. This was one of the 7 territories of the Black Star Core. It was located at the edge of the Geru star cluster, and was one of the important gateways to enter the star cluster. At this time, a huge Black Star Core fleet slowly sailed out of the stargate of the Purple River star system. This was the construction team led by Herluz himself. Beside this stargate station, a large number of Black Star Core spaceships were waiting for Herluz's arrival. The two teams merged. This was the first exploration fleet. After the exploration was completed, tens of millions of exploration fleets gathered in the 7 territories to serve as construction workers and wait for orders from the upper echelons. In the conference room of the main ship, Herluz was having a meeting with the remote projections of Sylvia, Lagi, and the other senior officers to discuss the construction plan. Purple River, Long Day, Ponzale, Orlando, Fenrir, Sigma, and Edney, these 7 star systems belong to the Black Star Core. We will first complete the infrastructure construction, then carefully carve and slowly transform the star system, Herluz said with a serious expression. Although he liked to slack off, he was still very serious about the missions given to him by Han Shao. Sylvia nodded. First, build the Stargate transportation network of the 7 star systems and link them together to make it convenient for fleets to travel. During the exploration period, the transportation network has already taken shape. This will be very convenient. Next, we will install the Army's own security devices and space monitoring devices, as well as large-scale quantum network base stations, making the 7 star systems the territory of the Army's artificial intelligence. When the Black Star Army took over the 7 star systems, they would need to build their own infrastructure and forge them into an iron plate. According to the blueprints left by the Army commander, we need to focus on the 2 gateway star systems, Purple River and Ponzale. We need to firmly control the stargates of the main transportation route. These stargates were originally guarded by the dynasty's army, but they are now under our control. We need to leave some guards behind. In terms of planet transformation, we will focus on the Army's base and the resource excavation base first. Those galactic cities and transit stations will only be put to use after the star field opens up. The construction can be delayed. The Army commander's blueprint says that the Sigma star system at the center of the star cluster will be the logistical headquarters of the Army in the flickering world. That place also needs to be heavily modified to build a large number of barracks, military factories, and spaceports. The 7 star systems covered a large area, and the construction work was very arduous. Han Shao had given them the blueprint, and the specific operation plan needed to be formulated by Herluz, Sylvia, and the other people in charge. While everyone was discussing, Lagi carried out his usual style of not caring about anything at all and acted as a mascot. Soon, they came up with a plan. Under Herluz's command, the construction team started to work in an orderly manner. They built the Stargate channel and set up various devices. The facilities left behind during the exploration period could be used again, saving a lot of resources. At the same time, Bloodshedland, Klent, and the other dynasty allies also started to build their own territories. The entire flickering world entered a state of construction. Developing a new star field was a long-term project, and it would take many years to transform it into the prosperous appearance of the explored universe. The 7 star systems were all rich areas and important areas in his previous life. Han Shao estimated that it would take decades to complete the blueprint according to his memory. The next phase of the Red Empire's exploration plan would not be so long apart. The second phase of the exploration would probably begin when the first 2 star systems were completed. While the construction team was in full swing, the mechanical life and the Black Spirit race also arrived at the new home planet that Han Shao had designated. The Sigma star system was the central area of the Geru star cluster. It was rich in resources and connected to the other 2 territories, Edney and Orlando. Planet Apostle was a resource planet in this star system named by Han Xiao. It was gray in color and had rich mineral veins and metal resources. Although it was not a habitable planet in the conventional sense, it was suitable for mechanical life to live in. Dozens of spaceships slowly landed on a gray wasteland. Psionic Prime led the 100,000 mechanical lives out of the spaceship and looked around. The wasteland extended to the end of the horizon. There was no greenery in sight, only endless gray rocks and flying sand. "This will be our home from now on." Psionic Prime tapped his spear and ordered everyone to build the city immediately. If it were a normal creature, they would most likely feel the hardships of building a civilization from scratch on such a desolate planet. However, such emotions did not exist for mechanical life. Their mentality was more similar to that of the colonists. With the construction equipment provided by the Black Star Corps and their own talents, the mechanical life built the city very quickly. Looking down from the sky, a metal region appeared on the surface and gradually spread out. A mechanical city rose from the ground. The first thing that was built was a large number of weapon factories. With sufficient raw materials, mechanical life forms were assembled one after another. A portion of the mechanical life forms consumed their own life energy to synthesize their own Tinder genetic code and hatch the second generation of mechanical life forms. Mass production was the strength of the mechanical life forms. At the same time, the mechanical life forms detected the distribution of the underground mines and used their construction equipment to build excavation wells. They dug out rocks and sent materials into the warehouse continuously. Without enemies, the construction efficiency of the mechanical life forms was terrifyingly high. Under the actions of Psionic Prime and the other mechanical life forms, Planet Apostle was rapidly transforming. On the other side, the Black Spirit race had also arrived at their new home, the new planet Black Spirit in the Edney star system. This planet was different from the desolate planet Apostle. It was a habitable planet with vast vegetation and lush forests. There were also many gentle native beasts. The migration fleet landed on a fertile plain. The Black Spirit race swarmed out of their spaceships and looked around curiously with their evolved green eyes. "Is this our new home? It seems even more beautiful." A spaceship shot out a tractor beam and placed the statue of Black Star on the plain. They could not move the Black Spirit race's city, but they could still move a landmark. To the Black Spirit race, the statue of Black Star was a landmark. It was similar to a cultural wonder. They could abandon the city, but they could not abandon the statue. Han Xiao needed the Black Spirit race to develop in the next few decades, so he could only interfere with the progress of the Black Spirit race's civilization. These spaceships that transported the Black Spirit race had many pieces of equipment and would not leave. Instead, they would stay behind to help the Black Spirit race build their home. Under the gaze of the Black Spirit race, an army member handed a communicator to the Germinal tribe leader. "This contains the knowledge that God Black Star has given you. You can learn it and use it to transform your race." The Germinal tribe leader carefully opened the communicator, and a list popped up on the screen. It was all technological information. This was a technology tree that Han Xiao had tailored according to the racial characteristics of the Black Spirit race. It had everything from basic to high-end subject. An entire system of technology tree could ensure that the Black Spirit race's development would not go astray. With the efficient communication through the mental network, all the Black Spirit race members quickly learned about this matter and worshipped the statue of Black Star. "Thank you, God Black Star, for your gift." The Germinal tribe leader was extremely excited. This emotion spread to all his people, and their faith became even more fervent. The sacred knowledge that God Black Star had given to them was of historical significance to the entire race. This scene would forever be engraved in the inherited memories of the Black Spirit race. Although mechanical life and the Black Spirit race existed in different forms, they had some similar characteristics. For example, both of them had the ability to think like a hive. One was a mental network, while the other was a quantum network. They could highly condense the productivity of the race. Races with this characteristic all had unparalleled development potential. To a certain extent, the Black Spirit race was similar to the Zerg race. As long as they were on the right track, they would be able to enter the fast lane of civilization development. The mechanical life was even more impressive. They had extremely high technological standards from the start and only lacked land and population. Han Xiao had high hopes for both of them. He had purposely placed them in different star systems in hopes of giving them sufficient space to develop. Speaking of which, when both of them developed, they could be treated as natural disasters. If the fourth natural disaster, which was the players of the 4 natural disasters, he occupied 3 of them. In the past month, countless people had been paying attention to the construction of the flickering world by the Red Empire and its allies. This was the most eye-catching event in the entire universe. Other than that, all other news was overshadowed. Like the other allies, the Black Star Corps had also placed their focus on the flickering world. They had invested a lot of manpower and resources, and they were in full swing. Taking advantage of the time when the Black Star Corps was occupied by the flickering world, the Limitless Financial Group had finally made a move on the interests of the Black Star Corps in the Shattered Star Ring. Hey, this chapter says that it's finally recovered. Coach, I want to copy the book reviews. Asterisk, oh asterisk, asterisk. Chapter 930. The Colin Corporation was a local enterprise in the Shattered Star Ring. It made a living from resource mining, logistics, material processing, and more than a dozen other businesses. It was quite famous. Although it was not at the level of a large financial group, it was still a galactic-level enterprise listed in the local star field. It had cooperative relationships with many star system civilizations and many planetary civilizations, and its annual turnover was very impressive. At the same time, this corporation was also a partner of the Black Star Corps, providing business channels for the Army. These commercial organizations cooperated with the Black Star Corps partly for the Evolution Cube and partly because of the influence of the Black Star Corps in the local area. Being a partner of the Black Star Corps would bring a lot of convenience to their businesses. For example, many local civilizations were partners of the Army. Both sides had the same background, and they were more like friends on the same boat. Thus, they would more or less take care of each other. The commercial organizations that did not cooperate with the Army were at a disadvantage, and it was getting harder and harder to get orders. In the long run, the concept of interests was born. Many commercial organizations were unwilling to fall behind and would also cooperate with the Army. This was the embryonic form of the interest network that the Black Star Corps had been operating in the Shattered Star Ring for many years. The Colin Corporation was one of the first enterprises to cooperate with the Black Star Corps. Its performance had been booming over the years, and its prospects were bright. However, at this moment, in the conference room of the Colin Corporation headquarters, all the executives and shareholders were gathered. Most of them had frowns on their faces, and the atmosphere was heavy. The current leader of the corporation, Colin Dulles, sat at the head of the table. His expression was very ugly, and his tone was filled with suppressed anger. The Hebrew civilization and Sidro civilization have terminated their cooperation with us. Not only did they take back the planet mining rights we bought, but they also cancelled the long-term orders for the supply of materials. I was negotiating with the Visser civilization before. If we could get the order from them, the corporation would be able to obtain a new business area. The negotiations were coming to an end, but the Visser civilization suddenly overturned the previous terms and cooperated with others. We are now in a very bad situation. One of the executives sighed. That's right. Many of the heads of the civilization departments who had a good relationship with us have now cut off contact. This is not a normal situation. There must be a competitor behind this. Humph, I know who it is. Colin snorted and said angrily, "Some time ago, the Limitless Financial Group contacted me and said that they wanted to buy the Colin Corporation, but I rejected them. The recent movements of the corporation were all caused by them." What? Is that really the case? Why didn't I know that the Limitless Financial Group contacted us? Quite a few people were shocked. Only now did they know about this situation. There were also some higher-ups who remained silent and watched coldly from the sidelines. It was clear that they already knew about this. I've asked around. The Limitless Financial Group has been acquiring companies in the Shattered Star Ring, and those that did not agree were more or less suppressed. I heard that because of the development of the flickering world, the Limitless Financial Group has decided to enter the Shattered Star Ring on a large scale. They are preparing to invest and build factories in the Hebrew civilization and the Sedlo civilization on a large scale. They must have reached some kind of deal behind the scenes to make the two of them terminate their cooperation with us. The opponent who intercepted the Visser Race's order is a company that the Limitless Financial Group acquired during this period. This time, the second largest shareholder of the corporation who did not get along with Colin sneered. Not only that, there are also a few important companies that have stopped doing business with us. Several civilizations have also stopped approving our loans. Dozens of middle-level backbones have been poached and resigned, leaving a gap in positions. Now, there are problems with the operation of the corporation. Until now, our business has shrunk by more than 30%, and the stock price of the corporation has plummeted. I've already said that we should not have rejected the Limitless Financial Group. That is one of the largest financial groups in the universe. Hearing this, Colin's face turned green. He also knew that the influence, financial power, and brand of the Limitless Financial Group were not something that they could compare to. If they could cooperate with the Limitless Financial Group, some partners would not hesitate to abandon them as a local company because the Limitless Financial Group could bring them greater benefits. The more Colin thought about it, the angrier he got. He slammed the table, and the black protruding bone in his hand left a shallow dent on the table. Don't even think about it. The Colin Corporation is my life's work. I will not agree to the acquisition request of the Limitless Financial Group. Then, how are you going to solve the current problem? If you don't have a solution, the corporation will go bankrupt sooner or later. Everyone here is a shareholder. If you want to lose the entire corporation in a fit of anger, you have to ask us first, the second shareholder said with a mocking expression. Colin frowned and was silent for a while before shaking his head. I need everyone to immediately terminate the cooperation with the Black Star Corps. Why? Colin did not understand. What did the acquisition have to do with the Black Star Corps? Why did they have to abandon such a good partner? Our Limitless Financial Group has already signed a cooperation agreement with Bloodshedland. Bloodshedland is prepared to imitate the Black Star Corps and create their own interests. Therefore, they need many organizations to join them. Every company that we acquire will have to join Bloodshedland and provide them with their own channels to expand their business. Medik smiled indifferently. Colin frowned. Suddenly, his expression changed, and a hint of uncertainty flashed through his eyes. He had also participated in the Black Star Party some time ago and met Sorokin. However, Sorokin had invested in Bloodshedland to deal with the Black Star Corps. As a local of the Shattered Star Ring, a bold guess appeared in Colin's mind. No, the Limitless Financial Group doesn't just want to enter the Shattered Star Ring. On the surface, they're acquiring companies like us, but their real target might be the Black Star Corps. We might just be chess pieces dragged into the storm. The Colin Corporation was just one example. During this period, many local companies in the Shattered Star Ring were acquired or controlled. Some of them were directly convinced by the power of money and were happy to join the Limitless Financial Group. The upper echelons took the money and left happily. As for the companies that did not agree, the Limitless Financial Group had many methods to deal with them. For example, they could divide the upper echelons based on the conflict between the decision-makers, integrate the small shareholders to get rid of the large shareholders, carry out hostile takeovers, or bribe some important key personnel, or indirectly hinder the business of some companies through investment and factory construction, or use the financial group's own high-quality products to directly snatch market share. The Limitless Financial Group's production technology and product quality were higher, and they had their own brand effect in the universe. They could also directly use financial operations to deal with listed companies. The Limitless Financial Group was very experienced and had dozens of combinations. After a round of fighting, many companies could not withstand it. Even if they did not compromise, they would be suppressed to the brink of death sooner or later. At that time, they would be at an even greater disadvantage if they were acquired. The Limitless Financial Group had no way of directly shaking a behemoth like the Black Star Army and could only nibble away at it bit by bit. To some of the local small and medium-sized enterprises, this kind of top-notch universal financial group was a giant crocodile that could not be contended with at all. These local companies were rich, but the Limitless Financial Group was especially rich. Under such operations, the Limitless Financial Group, which had been brewing for a few months, acquired many business channels through the acquisition of many local companies. They forcefully entered the shattered star ring market and gained a firm foothold, attracting widespread attention and vigilance. At the same time, the Bloodshed Land and the Limitless Financial Group released an announcement together, publicly announcing the joint development of the two organizations. The Bloodshed Land expressed that they would expand their business and transform their organization, aiming to become a diversified organization. Although it was not explicitly stated, everyone in the Shattered Star Ring knew that the Bloodshed Land was imitating the Black Star Core. The Limitless Financial Group and the Bloodshed Land are deeply cooperating? In the office of the Chief Administrative Officer, Sylvia looked at the report in her hands with a grave expression. The secretary beside her shook her head and said with a worried tone, "Your Excellency Chief Administrative Officer, the Bloodshed Land is trying to snatch our business. There is already a conflict of interest between the two sides. The organizations acquired by the Limitless Financial Group have already terminated their cooperation with us and joined the Bloodshed Land. They don't want the slots for the Evolution Cube?" Sylvia frowned. I'm not sure, but these are all private organizations. Their demand for the Evolution Cube might not be that great. Hearing this, Sylvia nodded. That was indeed the case. Those private organizations were different from civilizations. Even if they needed the slots for the Evolution Cube, they would have bought them out in the past few years. The ones who stayed behind were mainly for the influence of the Union. Now that they had been acquired, they could only act according to the Limitless Financial Group's wishes. Normal business competition was a competition of strength, wealth, and influence. It could not be used in combat. Furthermore, the Bloodshed Land was also a beyond Grade A organization, and they were both allies of the dynasty. The Limitless Financial Group was using them as a shield, which made things difficult. Her teacher was right. The Limitless Financial Group was indeed up to no good. Sylvia snorted inwardly and read the report carefully. Although the Limitless Financial Group was powerful, it was impossible for them to fight against all the enterprises in the entire star field alone. Not to mention those civilizations, it was impossible for them to give up on the cooperation of the Evolution Cube. The Limitless Financial Group could only start from private organizations, and purchasing them would cost money. The larger organizations were not targeted for the time being. The Limitless Financial Group was a very strong dragon, but no matter how strong it was, its energy was limited. Currently, it had only dealt with a small portion of the enterprises and gained a firm foothold in the star field. Even if it wanted to acquire more organizations, it would have to do so step by step. Thus, although the Black Star Corps had lost some business channels, it was far from a serious injury. Only the peripheral businesses were affected. The core businesses such as the Evolution Cube, the development of the Flickering World, and the mining of resource planets were still as stable as ever. However, this trend had to be guarded against. The limitless financial group investing in the Bloodshed Land was a problem. If the Bloodshed Land became strong enough to compete with the Black Star Corps, the number of partners in the army would decrease, which would mean that the size of the army would shrink. This would restrict the development of the army and affect the blueprint set by the army commander. Thinking of this, Sylvia's expression became serious, and she took out her communicator. I have to inform teacher immediately. Remember the mobile version of the website. 931 Trouble appears, page 1/1, bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 931. At the same time, Central Galaxy, in the Dynasty's territory. A small unmarked fleet was docked above a huge blue planet. This was one of the famous galactic cities in the Red Empire. The economy was prosperous, and the population was huge. This fleet came from the Black Star Corps division in the Constellation Corridor. Because he would be staying in the Dynasty's territory for a long time, Han Shao had mobilized the local army's fleet as soon as he arrived in the Central Galaxy. The main reason was to use the fleet's machinery factory so that he could produce machinery at any time during the journey. The Red Empire knew that Han Shao had come to the Central Galaxy, so he did not need to report to Planet Crimson Ring. Other than the military's secret areas, he could go anywhere in the Dynasty's territory. The upper echelons of the Dynasty would not care about his whereabouts. Han Shao trained his energy training technique while searching for the famous people in the Dynasty's territory. He had come to this galactic city to visit one person. The advanced civilizations all placed great importance on the education of their descendant. Many important colonial planets in the Dynasty had official academies of the Dynasty, and they were basically the best in the universe. They had the best education resources, and the recruitment season of the various academies was a huge event that the entire civilization paid close attention to. Among them, the Super Academy was the school that more than 90% of the galactic residents yearned for. Supers and ordinary people were two different classes to begin with. It was as if they were in two different worlds. Every ordinary person wanted to grasp extraordinary power, and those without talent would transfer this yearning to their descendants. The Dynasty's 16th Comprehensive Super Academy was a top-notch academy in the Dynasty. It was a famous facility on this planet, and Han Zhao's target was this academy. In his memory, a future beyond Grade A of the Dynasty had graduated from this academy. According to the information in his previous life, this beyond Grade A had been recruited into this academy between Galaxy Calendar Year 709 and 712, which was the beginning of the version 3.0-4.0 update. Because the fleet did not have any markings, Han Zhao's arrival did not cause a commotion on the planet. He only informed the upper echelons of the academy, and the principal immediately put down all the matters at hand and personally came out to welcome the important person of the Dynasty. At this moment, in one of the campuses of the Dynasty's 16th Comprehensive Super Academy, Han Shao and Aurora were walking on a tree-lined path. Their faces were disguised, and others could not see their true identities. The principal followed closely beside them, accompanying them on a tour of the academy. The man-made trees blocked the artificial sun in the sky, and the sunlight that passed through the canopy was cut into pieces of golden shards. There was a sparkling river by the side of the road, and a few young students in the lower grades were jumping around on the water, experimenting with their superpowers with curiosity. Not far away, students of different races were whispering sweet nothings to each other on the meadow. Occasionally, a few students would fly past in the sky, carrying books as they hurried to class. The entire place was filled with the aura of youth. How nice! Looking at this scene, Aurora's eyes revealed traces of yearning and envy. Her childhood was like hell. She had never experienced the growth of a normal person. The life of a normal person is already very far away from me. Han Xiao glanced at it and suddenly felt somewhat disappointed. Looking down, the side of Aurora's face seemed to be reflecting the morning sun. Her long eyelashes trembled slightly. Because of her esper ability, her temperament seemed pure and holy. Your Excellency Black Star, the pugilist class teaching area is right ahead. This time, the principal's voice sounded in his ears. Han Xiao retracted his gaze from Aurora and looked ahead. What entered his eyes was a continuous stretch of tall buildings. There were spherical gravity training spaces that could be seen with the naked eye floating in the air. Many pugilist students were training there. The three of them walked around the teaching area for a while and came to a classroom. A class of new pugilist students were having a cultural class. Han Xiao looked in through the window, and his eyes focused on an inconspicuous universe human race male student in the middle. This ordinary and slightly honest face was very familiar to him. Carrot, the dynasty's direct beyond grade A in the later versions. After Dark Emperor Claudi died in battle, he had taken over his position. His strength had also reached the level of a peak beyond grade A. The memories of his previous life flashed through Han Xiao's mind. Seeing that Han Xiao had stopped, the principal was a little confused. He looked over and stared at Carrot. He hesitated and said, "Your Excellency Black Star, do you know this new student?" Han Xiao shook his head. "I feel that he has quite a lot of potential." Hearing this, the principal sized Carrot up carefully for a while, but still could not see anything special about him. He did not think much of it, but he could not ignore the opinion of a beyond grade A super. He took out his communicator and secretly checked Carrot's file, only to find that this new student had yet to awaken his super gene. His physical fitness test results were also the last of his batch. Most of the new students of the Super Academy were ordinary people. The Academy would select the best seedlings and start their education. The deadline was 1.5 years. If they were unable to awaken their superpowers within this period, they would be asked to leave. "I hope to have a chat with him later," Han Xiao said. "This, all right." The principal hesitated for a while before agreeing. Han Xiao randomly came to an empty classroom. After waiting for a while, the bell rang and the outside became noisy. This time, the classroom door opened and the principal walked in with Carrot. "Sit." Han Xiao smiled. "Why are you looking for me?" "I didn't do anything wrong." Carrot stood there in a daze. His face was uneasy, and his words were a little clumsy. His family was an ordinary person who ran a small business. Because his parents hoped that he would become a super so that his family's business could receive the social benefits unique to supers, they asked him to come to the Super Academy. Carrot had been honest since young and did not have any opinions of his own. Thus, he took the entrance exam and was lucky enough to pass. His family was overjoyed, so he also cherished his spot as a student. As a new student who had never come into contact with the world of supers, Carrot had only seen the principal once during the opening ceremony. Today, however, the principal had specially come to find him. This made Carrot feel uneasy, thinking that he had violated some school rules. "Haha, you didn't do anything wrong. I just wanted to see you." Han Xiao laughed. Carrot then heaved a sigh of relief. Staring at Han Xiao's unfamiliar face, he curiously asked, Who are you? I don't know you. Why do you want to see me?" "Oh, I'm Black Star. You might have heard of my name before. I'm a beyond grade A ally of the Red Empire. I think you have potential. Are you willing to join the Black Star Corps?" Han Xiao smiled. Although the purpose of this trip was to visit a future famous expert, Carlot's current status was too low, and it did not suit his status to even try to make friends with him. If he could poach someone with potential, Han Xiao would not be stingy. Seeing this, the principal began to doubt his own vision again. It was not polite to poach someone in front of him, but he did not dare do anything. He was more curious about what was so special about Carrot that Black Star would personally ask. "What's the Black Star core?" Carrot's eyes widened in confusion. He did not pay attention to galactic affairs at all. He only knew the name of the dynasty ruler and did not know anything else. Han Zhao's mouth twitched and he gave Aurora a look. Aurora had no choice but to patiently explain. Carrot still did not understand. "So, you're mercenaries?" "You can think of it that way for now." Han Xiao was helpless. "If you join the army, you'll be able to receive better education and benefit." Before Han Xiao could finish, Carrot shook his head repeatedly. "I'm not going. Dad only wants me to become a super to improve the life of the family. He doesn't allow me to go out and fight. If he finds out, I'll definitely be beaten up." Hearing this, Han Xiao did not know whether to laugh or cry. This was a new reason for him. There was indeed no lack of people in the universe who only coveted the benefits of being a super. However, with strength, one's mentality would change. He could understand why Carrot would think this way. In Han Zhao's previous life, Carlet had been a Hirogwa type of main character. He was honest and somewhat clumsy, and his growth was slow. However, in the end, he took one step at a time and stood at the peak of strength. At his peak, he could even kill ordinary beyond grade as without breaking a sweat. After graduating from the official Super Academy, the military and some government departments would come to recruit them. If they did not choose to further their studies or join the military, they would graduate normally. It was then that Carrot had his own opinions. For the first time, he went against the wishes of his family and chose to join the military. That was how he started his legendary career. The current Carrot was just a naive child in Han Zhao's eyes. Every beyond grade A was unique. If he rashly changed Carrot's experience, he might not be able to grow up like he did in his previous life. After all, people like Carrot did not have Esper ability potential like Hela. Seeing that no one spoke, Carrot scratched his head and asked hesitantly, "If there's nothing else then I'll be leaving?" "All right." Han Xiao put away his thoughts, smiled, and nodded. He decided not to make a move on Carrot for the time being. There was no value in poaching him yet. However, he had also indirectly helped Carrot. With his identity, if he showed that he valued a student, the principal would definitely try to focus on grooming him. He could stay here for a while and interact more, thinking of ways to make Carrot owe him a favor and form a closer relationship. After watching Carrot leave, Han Xiao bade farewell to the principal and returned to the spaceship. As soon as he entered the cabin, Han Zhao's communicator rang. It was a message from Sylvia. "Teacher, there's a situation with the Limitless Financial Group." Han Zhao's eyes flickered. "Tell me in detail." Sylvia quickly explained the actions of the Limitless Financial Group in the Shattered Star Ring. Han Xiao frowned, and the scene of him communicating with Sorokin flashed through his mind. Entering the Shattered Star Ring is fake. Their real goal is to deal with me. "Teacher, you're saying," Han Xiao pondered. "On the surface, the Limitless Financial Group is only doing business, but in reality, they're supporting Bloodshed Land to be our competitor, directly restricting our development. I've been waiting for the pressure from the evolutionary totem. So, this is the form. There must be someone behind the Limitless Financial Group. It's most likely related to Radiance and Ethereal." He had always been sensitive, but the current situation made him feel enlightened. He guessed the ins and outs of the situation. "Then, what should we do? There's no way to resolve this." Sylvia's expression was grave. Han Xiao was a little troubled. In terms of business activities, the Limitless Financial Group was an overlord. The core business of the army would not be affected, but this could not stop Sorokin from purchasing the army's partners. Furthermore, this would also lead to a negative effect. In order to not be targeted by the limitless financial group, some of the partners might take the initiative to terminate their partnership and earn less in exchange for their own safety. This was a proper strategy of using one's strength to attack the enemy's weakness. The limitless financial group is a whole. If we want to fight against them, we have to turn the scattered capital into a whole. It's not like we don't have any benefit. External pressure is more convenient for us to unite internally. Maybe we can use this opportunity to turn some of our partners into hardcore supporters. Inform them and try to get them to form an existence similar to the Chamber of Commerce Alliance to help each other and resist the limitless financial group's hostile takeover. That's not a bad idea. Sylvia thought about it and nodded in agreement. Sigh, there's no way to resolve the limitless financial group's strategy. It's just to stop the losses. A cold light flashed in Han Zhao's eyes. After some time, I'll get the mechanical shell left in the headquarters to make a trip to the Bloodshed Land and find Heber, to have a good talk. After discussing the countermeasures, Han Zhao hung up the communication, and his expression quickly sank. Sorokin's strategy was to take drastic measures. To do this when the Black Star Corps had the opportunity to develop rapidly in the flickering world, he was deliberately dragging the army down and not allowing himself to develop in peace. The plan to form an alliance of interests had been in progress for a few years, and Sorokin was going to destroy the army's achievements over the past few years. On the surface, it was under the banner of business activities, but it was also using the Bloodshed Land's shell. The dynasty had no right to interfere, so Han Zhao could not use force to solve this. Although Sorokin's strategy could not shake the core of the army, it was extremely sinister and disgusting, and it was killing the army's future. He originally wanted to contact Sorokin to ask, but he gave up on this idea after thinking about it. With Sorokin's cunning personality, he would definitely use normal business activities as an excuse. Since he had already done so, he was not afraid of Han Zhao being dissatisfied. Since Sorokin had such a reaction, Han Zhao could not be bothered to call him. Heber most likely agreed to cooperate with me because he wanted to use this opportunity to develop his organization. He doesn't mind dealing me a blow. When I advance to level 300, I'll go and have a good chat with him. Han Zhao clenched his fists with a gloomy expression. He could not deal with Sorokin, but finding trouble with Heber would not be a problem. Didn't little tyrant want to save face? Didn't you think that this deal was very profitable? Then don't blame me for weakening your prestige. Chapter 932. Shattered Star Ring, Bloodshed Land. This is the situation. In a short period of time, we have obtained a large number of business channels. Conservatively speaking, our revenue this year will more than double. In the palace, Jode read the report excitedly. A tall and burly figure stood by the window. The Milky Way was reflected in Heber's eyes, tainted with deep emotions. He listened to the report silently. Jode continued reading. The Black Star Corps completed the transformation of their organization a few years ago and diversified their business. However, we do not have the evolution cube. Although we have the support of Klent, the transformation of our organization is very slow and has always been limited by the nature of a war mercenary organization. 70 to 80% of our funds have been provided by various armed mercenaries, and the high cost of maintaining the troops has dragged down the flow of funds. Now that we have joined forces with the Limitless Financial Group, they have been of great help in the transformation of our organization. The Black Star Corps and Bloodshed Land were both beyond Grade A organizations in their respective star fields, but they operated in different directions. Under the leadership of Han Zhao, the Black Star Corps had completed the transformation from an armed organization to a diversified organization with the help of the Evolution Cube. They had both military strength and financial resources, while the Bloodshed Land was a model of militarism. They had only one channel to materialize their influence, which had always been a problem for the Bloodshed Land. With the help of the Limitless Financial Group, this problem of Heber's was resolved. As long as they continued to develop according to this trend, the Bloodshed Land would no longer be a group of boorish people who only liked to fight. They would truly be able to compete with the Black Star Corps for the position of the leader of the private organizations in the Shattered Star Ring. Heber turned around and said coldly, "Well done." Jode hesitated for a moment and could not help but be curious. "Your Excellency Tyrant, what kind of agreement did you make with the Limitless Financial Group? Why are they helping you so much?" "It's a mutual benefit." Heber glanced at him. "They want to enter the Shattered Star Ring and use our influence to enter the local market. Humph, although their target is the Black Star Corps, we are also a beyond Grade A organization. Joining us will not be a loss for these enterprises." These were just superficial reasons. Heber did not intend to tell his subordinates about the deeper details of the deal. Jode rolled his eyes. Heber did not say it clearly, but he could vaguely guess that the reason was not that simple. The Limitless Financial Group did not look for Black Star but instead looked for them. It was obvious that they were targeting the Black Star Corps. Just thinking about the possibilities behind it made him break out in a cold sweat. Jode didn't dare to continue asking. He still wanted to live until the day he could hold his grandson. Jode wiped his sweat and left the room. Heber was the only one left in the room. He looked out the window again. After a long time, the corner of his mouth curved up. In front of his subordinates, Heber kept a straight face and looked as if his heart was as still as water, but in reality, he was very happy. He did not care whether the Limitless Financial Group would succeed or not, as long as they could take this opportunity to develop. He did not care about the losses suffered by the Black Star Corps. Both sides were allies of the dynasty, but they had always been competitors. He could not wait for the Black Star Corps to suffer more losses. On the other side, Carrot, who had rejected Han Zhao's invitation, returned to the pugilist dormitory absent-mindedly. A few of his roommates immediately surrounded him with curious expressions. "Hey, why did the principal look for you?" Carrot was more honest, and his grades were also at the bottom, so he was quite popular. After class, his roommates saw the principal looking for Carrot and thought that he had done something strange, so they were a little concerned. Carrot scratched his head. "Nothing much, just someone who wants to see me." "Who is that? To be able to get the principal to look for you?" A handsome roommate had a suspicious expression. He had the best family background in the entire dormitory, but he was far from being in contact with the principal of the dynasty's super academy. Carrot's family background was very ordinary, which made him feel very surprised. "He said his name is Black Star, and he wants me to join the Black Star Corps." Carrot was helpless. As soon as he said that, his roommates opened their eyes wide in disbelief. "That legendary Black Star? You must be kidding. Why would he look for you?" Seeing his roommates' expressions as if they had seen a ghost, Carrot was a little surprised. "You all know him? Oh my God, don't tell me you don't know who Black Star is." One of his roommates' eyes almost popped out of their socket. "I've never heard of him before." Carrot was a little embarrassed. "Is he really a big shot?" "He's not just a big shot. He's a beyond Grade A super, the pinnacle of individual strength. He's an existence that can joke around with the dynasty's ruler." One of them excitedly recounted the history of Han Zhao's rise. This was a true fan. The few of them surrounded Carrot and questioned him. Carrot then told them everything. His ability to express himself was clumsy, and it took him quite a while before everyone understood that Black Star had nothing to do with his family. Black Star was only interested in his potential. The handsome roommate didn't feel good about it. Why did such an opportunity fall into the hands of such a bottom feeder instead of him? This time, another roommate suddenly realized something. Did you accept Black Star's invitation? Facing everyone's gazes, Carrot felt a little uncomfortable. I didn't agree. You actually rejected the opportunity to join the Black Star Corps? The few of them opened their mouths wide. They were all speechless. Are you stupid? This is a chance to change your fate. Ordinary people like us don't even have the qualifications to join the Black Star Corps. You actually. Hearing everyone's words, Carrot was a little confused and doubted his own choice. Did I really do something wrong? I'd better ask my family. With a conflicted expression, Carrot took out his communicator and ran to the side to contact his family. That handsome roommate looked at Carrot's back view with resentment and jealousy in his eyes. Why is it him? Why is it him? He received such an opportunity to change his fate, but he did not know how to cherish it. He's simply too stupid. Why would that legendary character choose someone like him? He used to like Carrot quite a bit and was willing to take care of him. However, now, he only felt disgust for Carrot. The next day, Han Xiao temporarily put aside the worries of the limitless financial group and continued to observe Carrot in the school. He discovered an interesting situation. After a day of fermenting, what happened yesterday had already spread throughout Carrot's class. The other freshmen's attitude toward Carrot had changed. Some took the initiative to curry favor with him, some faintly ostracized him, and some looked on coldly. Because of my actions yesterday, his entire life as a student has been rewritten by me. He can no longer be a nobody like he was in my previous life. Han Xiao shook his head. He had a better understanding of his status as a big shot. Carrot's accumulation period was very long. Being involved in this storm early on had an unknown effect on his growth. Could be good or bad. However, for now it was helping him. Those who could become beyond grade A supers had a tenacity that would not easily admit defeat. They would only face difficulties head-on, and difficulties would only stimulate their potential. Carrot did not know that such a trait was hidden in his body. Perhaps the intense competition in the school would allow Carrot to transform faster. Since that's the case, why don't I add fuel to the fire? Han Xiao scratched his chin. After waiting for a while, the bell finally rang, and the students in the classroom filed out. Han Xiao did not hide and called out to them in public. Carrot. Hearing someone call his name, Carrot stopped in his tracks and turned around. Seeing that Han Xiao's clothes were the same as yesterday, he recognized Han Xiao's identity and could not help but be shocked. He stammered, "Black Star, it's you again." His voice was not loud, but as if it had a magical power, all the students around him stopped what they were doing. Countless pairs of passionate and excited eyes focused on Han Xiao as they excitedly whispered to each other. "You seem very nervous." Han Xiao glanced around and ignored the crowd. He smiled at Carrot. Although the virtual camouflage prevented others from seeing his true appearance, he could still show his expression. "Dad told me to thank you, but he doesn't want me to have too much contact with you." Carrot's expression was uneasy. Han Xiao did not mind. With a wave of his finger, the communicator in Carrot's bag flew into his hand. After casually operating it a few times, he handed it back to Carrot. "It's okay. I'll leave my number with you. If one day you change your mind, you can contact me at any time." Carrot was flattered, and then his face became unconfident. "I really don't understand. Why do you value me so much? I'm just passionate about nurturing more talents." Han Xiao reached out and patted Carrot's head, taking advantage of him. Looking at the confused Carrot and noticing the changes in the eyes of the surrounding students, he could not help but reveal a meaningful smile on his face. Helping you strengthen the template of a main character, there's no need to thank me." After taking a deep look at Carrot, Han Zhao's figure disappeared without a trace before everyone's eyes. The next moment, Han Zhao's figure appeared on the spaceship outside the atmosphere. He did not continue to stay on this planet and had the fleet set sail to leave. In the following days, Han Zhao had been active within the dynasty. The upper echelons of the dynasty noticed that Han Zhao seemed to have been visiting different people. Some were middle and low-level members of the dynasty, while others were ordinary people. The upper echelons of the dynasty understood Han Zhao's plan. Not only did the dynasty's future rely on Black Star, but Black Star was also planning for the future, considering investing in talents and considering the right to speak in the future. However, what surprised the upper echelons of the dynasty was that Han Zhao did not choose the current upper echelons of the dynasty, but some strange people. What was the reason for this? The dynasty had investigated everyone that Han Zhao had visited. Some of them did indeed have extraordinary potential, but most of the targets did not seem to have anything special about them. The upper echelons of the dynasty were very confused. They also could not figure out what theory Black Star was using to choose his investment target. It seemed too random on Han Zhao's side. He visited many future famous NPCs one after another, giving him a strange sense of déjà vu. He felt like he was playing a game called Dream in the Galaxy. Most of them refused to join the Black Star Corps like Carrot, but some with potential accepted Han Zhao's invitation and ruthlessly poached people from the dynasty. Of course, the people that Han Zhao poached did not include the dynasty officials who would be in power in the future. On the Shattered Star Ring's side, Sylvia followed Han Zhao's instructions and took measures to contact the cooperation organizations of many armies. Using the pressure brought by the Limitless Financial Group, she urged these organizations to form an alliance to resist the acquisition plan of the Limitless Financial Group. This method was somewhat effective, and a portion of the army partners decided to accept the suggestion and formed a loose alliance, increasing the difficulty of the acquisition plan of the Limitless Financial Group. However, this did not solve the root of the problem. At most, it would turn the situation into a tug-of-war, but there was still the risk of being destroyed one by one. After all, the army was not a real financial group, and its capital was not as strong as the Limitless Financial Group. These partners were independent and were not subsidiaries of the army, so this was the limit for the time being. The most important thing was to rely on the partners themselves. The army could only provide some benefits from the cooperation civilizations to curb the Limitless Financial Group's money and indirectly help the companies that cooperated with the army. The only way to solve this problem was to open up the right to sell the evolutionary totem, but this was not something that Han Zhao could decide alone. Since competition was unavoidable, Han Zhao did not dwell on it too much and silently trained his energy. When his energy reached the requirement of the promotion mission, he would find trouble with the tyrant. This would not solve the problem, but it would hurt each other. The only one he could use force against was Heber, and it would be useless for him to propose a spar to Sorokin. The latter was only the leader of a financial group and was doing business under normal rules. If he used force to deal with him, it would only make the universe citizens feel that the Black Star Corps was too overbearing. Furthermore, Sorokin did not need prestige at all. Han Zhao could imagine 108 ways in which Sorokin would admit defeat. However, Heber was different. They were both allies of the dynasty, but he was helping the enemy drag Han Zhao down. Han Zhao had no qualms about beating him up. This guy cared about his face, and deterrence was very important to him. It was impossible for him to admit defeat and avoid the spar. Heber would definitely fight with Han Zhao no matter what. This was a good opportunity for him to take revenge for bullying Han Zhao when he had just become a Beyond Grade A. As the owner of the Evolution Cube, Han Zhao's every move was related to the nerves of the various organizations. His aimless travel within the dynasty also attracted the attention of the various parties. Everyone knew that he was avoiding the limelight, so no one wanted to disturb him. However, there were some who had different thoughts. Within the Red Empire, Radbudo, this was a colonial planet of a star system-level vassal civilization. Due to the behind-the-scenes interference of the universal civilizations, all the vassal civilizations in the central galaxy mostly adopted a loose and backward political system. This civilization was the same. The colonial planet was governed by local lords. Unless there was an emergency, the lords would not be appointed by the central government but elected by the local governments. They were half independent from the central government and were equivalent to the feudal officials of an independent duchy. Such a backward political system was not conducive to the unification of the civilization's power, and this was the reason for its appearance. The position of the Lord of Radbudo had always been controlled by a few noble families, who took turns to become the lord of the planet. Although there was an election, according to the ancient agreement, this was only for show. The families who were actually in power had already discussed this behind the scenes. This year was the election year of Radbudo, but unlike previous years, a young entrepreneur who was born there had returned to participate in the election. His name was Enterpius. Originally, an outsider like him would be suppressed by a few families and could only be a bystander in the election. However, in this election, the citizens of Radbudo seemed to be tired of the political game of a few families taking turns to be in power. They desperately wanted a new face, so they all voted for an outsider. Enterpius had the highest voice. Firstly, he was a local, and secondly, he was a rather famous entrepreneur in the civilization. According to the trend of the votes, he was currently the candidate with the highest chance of being elected as the local lord. We hope that you can withdraw from the election. In the penthouse suite of the world's tallest building, the messengers of a few families placed a communicator with a transfer interface on the table, facing Enterpius, who was sitting on the sofa opposite them. What is the meaning of this? Enterpius frowned. Name a price. I don't lack money. Are you really going to block our way? Enterpius said with a deep voice, I'm only following the rules of the game. This is the purpose of the election. The messengers of several families looked at each other, put away the communicator, and stood up to leave. One of them glanced coldly at Enterpius and said calmly, You've made the wrong choice. After these messengers left the suite, Enterpius let out a long sigh of relief. His back was already covered in cold sweat. He was silent for a while in his seat, and a bitter smile appeared on his face. At this time, a young woman in a secretary uniform and gold-rimmed glasses walked in and stood in front of Enterpius. She looked worried. They won't let you go easily. I know. Enterpius waved his hand and murmured, If negotiations fail, they will definitely use force. The lightest result is kidnapping me and smearing my name. If it's serious, they won't let me live until the end of the election. I've already hired more interstellar mercenaries as bodyguards. They will definitely protect your safety. Mercenaries, people who can be bought with money, can't be trusted. Brother, if you really can't do it, just give up the election. Life is more important than anything. This female secretary was not an ordinary employee, but a relative of Enterpius. No, there are some things that have to be done. Enterpius shook his head. The female secretary had a complicated expression, and there was a faint admiration in her eyes. She had always admired Enterpius, not only because he was very resourceful, but also because he had courage and emotions that ordinary people did not have. The two of them were silent for a while. Enterpius suddenly thought of something, and his eyes lit up. By the way, I heard that the big shot Black Star is traveling in the Empire. The place he appeared last time was not far from Radbudo? It seems so. Hearing this, Iapetus fell into deep thought for a moment. His eyes narrowed as a bright light flashed in them. I have a bold idea. Maybe we can use Black Star. Chapter 933. In the top cabin of Black Star's spaceship, Dark Energy Collection Room 001. A black metal sphere with a diameter of 10 meters was suspended in the middle of the room. The surface of the sphere was filled with neatly arranged beehive-like holes. Most of the holes were connected to high-efficiency energy transmission cables that extended to the ground and walls. Clouds of dark energy flowed along the cables to power the energy core and the spaceship's engine. Meanwhile, the holes that were not connected to cables were shining with a dazzling black and red light. The spaceship was equipped with many dark energy collection rooms that were used to collect the dark energy in the universe. This black metal sphere was the dark energy collection and conversion device. Under normal circumstances, the energy core reactor was enough to sustain the spaceship's energy consumption. This collector's function was similar to a solar battery, mainly used as a backup energy source. Occasionally, the energy core would rest while providing extra energy to overload the spaceship. The collection room was filled with dense dark energy. Han Xiao floated in front of the collector. Strands of black and red dark energy surrounded his body like ribbons. All the cells in his body released a suction force, swallowing the dark energy in large mouthfuls. After being converted by the energy training technique, the dark energy was used to strengthen his own energy. Whoosh! After a while, the red light in Han Xiao's eyes slowly dissipated. He spat out a breath of hot air and looked at the notification on the interface. The number of times he could train the universal dark energy extraction technique had increased by 1. In the list of energy training techniques that Han Xiao had purchased, this was the best one. It absorbed dark energy and converted it. It could be trained 240 times at most. The maximum effect of a single training session was plus 10 points of energy. It could provide a maximum of 2,400 points of energy. Since triggering the promotion mission, Han Xiao had been training his energy every day without slacking. Now, his energy limit had increased by a few thousand points. After landing on the ground, Han Xiao raised his finger and controlled the unplugged energy transmission cable to be plugged back into the collector. Then, he turned around and walked out of the room. His mind entered the quantum network, and he grabbed Philip with 2 fingers and raised him to his eyes. "Is there anything going on recently?" "Let me see, a projection of a book appeared in Philip's hand. He pretended to flip through it for a while, and a light bulb with an animated effect appeared above his head. "In the past few days, dozens of forces in the Empire have sent invitations, hoping to get to know Master They're here again." Han Xiao was helpless. The news of Black Star's travels in the Empire was not a secret. Most people knew their place and would not disturb him. However, there were also a small group of people who wanted to climb up his thigh. So far, hundreds of forces within the Empire had invited him as a guest, but all of them were rejected by Han Xiao without exception. If there are no invitations worth paying attention to, then help me reject them all. Han Xiao waved his hand. "I've filtered through them. There's an interesting invitation letter in there. I think Master might be interested in it, As he spoke, the contents of the message unfolded before Han Xiao's eyes. "To His Excellency Black Star. I'm the founder of the Interpious Consortium, and I've always admired the Black Star Corps. I hope to cooperate with the Black Star Corps and establish a new branch in Red Budo. I happened to hear that you were passing by, so I wanted to invite you to Red Budo for an inspection. Lord of Red Budo, Interpious." Han Xiao read through it and did not quite understand. What's so special about this? It's just a very normal cooperation invitation. Just get the branch to send someone. Why do you have to go there personally? The problem is, I checked his identity when I received the news, and the signature was wrong. He's not the lord of that planet but a candidate with a very high voice. I compared it with the database, and through data analysis, he might be in a difficult situation right now. That's why he sent out the invitation. Han Xiao did not have any impression of Interpius, so he went online to check his background. Interpay's current situation was not a secret to a virtual mechanic. After reading through it, Han Xiao guessed Interpay's thoughts and showed an interested expression. Is he using me? And he's not even trying to hide it? Han Xiao had a playful look in his eyes. The difference in their identities was like heaven and earth. The leader of a small financial group actually wanted to use him, a big shot of the dynasty. At the very least, he was bold enough to do what he wanted. Master Hum? Do you want me to reply to him? Philip reached out to grab Han Xiao's virtual soul eyelashes. Han Xiao tilted his head, causing Philip to miss. He thought for a while and chuckled. Agree to him and change the fleet's route to planet Red Budo. Let's see what kind of person has the guts to use me. In the room, Interpius was walking back and forth with a frown. His female secretary sat at the side and dealt with the election documents. From time to time, she would look up at Interpius with concern. Beep beep. At this time, the communicator rang. Interpay's eyes lit up, and he walked to the table with large strides. He immediately picked up the communicator and looked at it. His expression changed instantly. Brother, are you okay? Seeing that his expression was not right, the female secretary could not help but ask. I'm very good. Black Star replied me. He agreed to my invitation and will come to Red Budo soon. Interpius excitedly slapped the table, overjoyed. He really agreed? The female secretary's eyes widened in disbelief. She was actually not optimistic about Interpays's plan. In her eyes, a big shot like Black Star would not respond to the invitation of a small fry like them. See for yourself. Interpius casually handed the communicator to the female secretary. This was a bold attempt, and he also knew that the success rate was very low. Even if Black Star could see through his unspoken words, this small amount of benefits would not be enough to move him. However, since Black Star had agreed, it meant that the cooperation was established. With that in mind, Interpius immediately ordered the female secretary, who was still in disbelief. Make the arrangements immediately. I want to personally welcome Black Star when he arrives. Understood. The female secretary immediately stood up, but suddenly hesitated. Those few families have been acting strangely. Should we release the news now and let them? No. Iapetus vetoed without hesitation. This news must not be leaked before Black Star arrives. Otherwise, I'll be in danger. Also, cancel all of our trips during this period. Don't let the enemy get the chance. The representatives of the prominent families in Red Budo gathered together and discussed. A thin, pale man sat on the sofa. The pale man had a long box in his hand. His palm was covering the surface of the box, never leaving it. I don't know what Interpius is doing. He cancelled all of his trips for the past few days and has been hiding in his heavily guarded home. He doesn't appear in any public places. This way we won't have the chance to do anything, said a family representative. Another person looked at the pale man. Do you have a way to kill him? This pale man was a high-level assassin that these families had been secretly supporting. He was a Grade B firearms master. Hearing the question, the pale man shook his head. I've been keeping an eye on Interpay's home for the past few days. He hired many bodyguards, including a few Grade B supers. The security is tight. Unless it's in an open area for me to snipe, I won't be able to force my way in. I've already contacted those Grade B bodyguard. They took the money, but they told me that they would at most pretend to be negligent. It's impossible for them to betray their employer. Otherwise, it would affect the mercenaries' credibility. Therefore, we still have to wait until Interpius goes out for an event. If those Grade B bodyguards go easy on him, I have 100% confidence that I can kill him. The pale man smiled coldly. Okay, be on standby. A representative's face was gloomy. Red Budo has always been our territory. We can't let outsiders control it. A few days later, Interpius, who had been quiet all this while, finally went out. He boarded a bulletproof flying vehicle and headed to the spaceport on the outskirts of the planet's capital. His purpose was unknown. When the few families received the news, they immediately took action. They arranged for the Pale Man to follow behind and wait for an opportunity. Very soon, Interpius arrived at the spaceport with a group of people. Under the protection of the bodyguards, they arrived at the spaceship landing ground and waited silently. The Pale Man followed behind, and under the arrangements of the few families, he quietly went to a storeroom in the command tower. There were no windows in the storeroom, but the firearms master's mark lock ability allowed him to aim at the target through the wall without any vision. This made his assassination location even more secretive. He opened the box that he carried with him, and inside it were the components of a sniper rifle. In his hands, he quickly assembled the components into a specially modified electromagnetic and kinetic energy sniper rifle. He adjusted the position of the sniper rifle against the wall and slowly put eye appeal into the crosshairs. The bodyguards left a small gap, but in the eyes of the Pale Man, it was an extremely deliberate flaw. He smiled coldly, pressed on his ear, and reported through the mini earpiece inside. "I'm in position. I can fire at any time." "Very good." The voices of the few family representatives could be heard from the earpiece. In the city, the few family representatives were also monitoring Interpay's movements through the satellite. They had controlled this planet for many years and had access to countless resources. Looking at Interpius on the satellite, the family representatives were puzzled. Is he waiting for someone? Strange, who would be looking for him? After all, he has a financial group. Maybe he hired some new bodyguards? If it's just bodyguards, there's no need for him to welcome them personally. After discussing for a while, no one could figure it out, so they gave up. No matter what he was planning, as long as they killed him, the problem would be solved perfectly. One of the representatives gave the order to the assassin. "You can move," however. Before he could finish his sentence, an emergency communication request popped up on the screen. It was from the Outer Space Defense Department of the planet. The family representative paused, and his heart skipped a beat. He quickly accepted the call. "What's going on?" "This is the Outer Space Observation Station. An unknown fleet suddenly appeared in the outer space orbit of the planet without any notification. A battleship has just broken through the warning network and is rapidly descending. The estimated landing point is the airport on the outskirts of the capital city." Hearing the coordinates, everyone in the room was stunned. This fleet was the people Interpius was waiting for? So aggressive. Did they want to show off their strength? Humph, what's the use of calling people? You're dead meat. Everyone's face sank. Just as they were about to give the order to the assassin, the startled voice of the observer suddenly sounded from the communication channel. "Wait a minute, I recognize it. This is the fleet of the Black Star Corps. Although there are no markings, I paid special attention to it. The number and model of the spaceships are exactly the same." In an instant, the expressions of all the family representatives changed drastically. At the same time, the group of people waiting at the airport heard the whistling of the airflow. They looked up and saw a spaceship descending from the sky at high speed. It was getting bigger and bigger in their line of sight. Soon, it landed on the ground, precisely stopping in front of Interpius and the others. Chi. The cabin door slid open and the gangway extended. A tall figure in a black coat walked out from the shadows. He removed the disguise on his face and showed his true face. Black Star. At this moment, the eyes of the family representatives widened in shock. One of them even fell to the ground with a thud. They had been scheming against each other on the planet. In their eyes, a big shot like Black Star was extremely far away from them. They were people from two completely different worlds. But today, the person Interpius was actually Black Star himself? How was this possible? What was their relationship? Why would Black Star come to such a small place just for him? Not only were the family representatives stunned, but even the bodyguards around Enterpius were also stunned. Just by looking at Black Star's figure, it was as if there was an overwhelming pressure coming from him. The strong aura made it difficult for everyone to breathe. At this time, the family representatives seemed to have woken up from a dream. They were so shocked that they almost screamed at the assassin through their earpieces. "Quick! Get out of there immediately! Stop all actions!" They were all frightened by Black Star's sudden visit. Before they knew the relationship between Black Star and Enterpius, no one dared to act rashly. The pale man swallowed his saliva while trembling. He dismantled the gun at lightning speed, picked up the box, and left the scene as if he was running for his life. Han Xiaoxin moved and glanced in the direction where the assassin escaped. He then retracted his gaze and walked down the gangway with Aurora. He sized up the leader of the group in front of him with interest. "You're Enterpius?" "Yes, I welcome your Excellency Black Star on behalf of Red Budo. Your arrival is our honor." Enterpius suppressed his nervousness and braced himself to speak. Although the plan was successful, and he had simulated the words to say countless times in his mind, the moment he saw Han Xiao, his mind went blank. All his imagination was shattered the moment he saw Han Xiao with his own eyes. His mentality was instantly shaken. "What kind of person did I summon?" Han Xiao sized him up and smiled gently. "Your guts are quite big." Enterpius trembled and did not dare to answer. He had a bitter premonition in his heart. This time, it was probably easier to invite a god in than to send him away. Chapter 934. The Enterpius in front of him was very respectful, and the female secretary beside him was very nervous. Han Xiao sized up the two of them and confirmed one thing in his mind. He really did not have any impression of these two people, which meant that they were not famous NPCs from his previous life. At least, they were not famous among the players. However, not being famous did not mean that they were not capable. The galaxy was vast, and there were bound to be many people that the players had not come into contact with. The Enterpius might not have achieved much in his previous life, or he might have died young, so he was unknown. Han Zhao's main idea of looking for people with potential was to use the information from his previous life as a reference, but other than that, it was also possible to find talents with potential. Before he came, the Han technician had investigated this person's past. His resume was complete and his background was clean. He had founded a civilized local financial group from scratch, and he had good foresight when it came to strategic decisions. He managed the financial group very well. If not for the fact that he had caught Han Zhao's attention, Han Xiao would not have deliberately investigated such an insignificant person. In his opinion, although the Enterpius did not have much combat strength, he was quite talented in handling affairs. He could be brought back to help Sylvia. Han Xiao did not speak for a while as he thought about all sorts of things. His silence increased the pressure on the Enterpius exponentially. A drop of sweat that reflected light slid down his temples. The Enterpius maintained his bowed posture, not daring to raise his hand to wipe his sweat. Han Xiao put away his thoughts and joked. "Are you going to let me just stand here like this?" "Sorry, it was my oversight. Please follow me, I've already arranged everything." The Enterpius hurriedly responded, secretly annoyed. Han Zhao's strong life rating suppression made him lose his composure, and he was afraid that his oversight would displease Han Xiao. The Enterpius led the way in front, leading Han Xiao and Aurora onto the flying vehicle. All the bodyguards were separated, and only the four of them were left in the private carriage. The vehicle started and flew all the way to the center of the city. In the carriage, the Enterpius and the secretary sat opposite Han Xiao and Aurora, their attitudes rather reserved. "You were the one who invited me here." Why are you so nervous? Han Xiao said. There are probably no more than 100 people in the entire universe who can remain calm in front of you, and that doesn't include me. Interpius calmed down and complimented. Unfortunately, Han Technician didn't fall for flattery. His attitude didn't change. Suddenly, the corners of his mouth curled up. That's right. You seem to have lied to me. You're not the lord of this planet yet. Interpace's spirits were lifted. He thought to himself, here it comes. He stabilized his emotions and calmed himself down. He smiled. It's only temporary. With my current support rate, it's only a matter of time before I'm elected as the Planet Lord. Han Xiao did not comment and chuckled. In that case, your so-called helping the Black Star Corps establish a branch here can only be fulfilled when you become the planet's overlord? This sharp question went straight to the heart of the matter. Although Interpius thought so, he did not dare admit it verbally. He only used silence as a form of tacit agreement. The other party's reaction did not exceed Han Xiao's expectations. He paused for a moment and smiled with interest. In that case, why don't I cooperate with the current planet's overlord directly? The election day is coming. I'll definitely be elected as the planet's overlord. In the end, I'll still be in charge of cooperating with you, so I invited you in advance while you were nearby. Interpius knew that this reason was untenable, but it was only an excuse. Before he invited Han Xiao, he had considered the consequences of angering Black Star. He knew that Black Star might turn around and cooperate with the few large families. However, this was a gamble to begin with. If Black Star did not come, he would not have a chance to turn the tables. Then, even if Black Star cooperated with his opponent, what was the difference between him and his previous situation? After weighing the gains and losses, he decided to use Black Star's influence. However, although it was said to be using, in reality, Interpius knew very well that this was a form of help. It was impossible for him to hide his methods from a big shot like Black Star. Whether Black Star would come or not was something that he was not confident about. Now that he was here, it meant that Black Star knew about his unspoken words and was willing to help him. Therefore, as long as he did not expose him in person, both sides would have a tacit understanding. Hearing this, Han Xiao did not continue to make things difficult for him. He shook his head and laughed. He was very familiar with Interpace's method. It was the empty check in the 72 trick. He could not help but think of a similar joke he had seen in his previous life. There was a young man who wanted to become the son-in-law of a world tycoon, so he went to a famous bank to apply for a job, claiming that he was the son-in-law of a tycoon and wanted to obtain a high-level position. Then, he went to the tycoon and claimed that he was a high-level executive of a famous bank and wanted to marry the tycoon's daughter. Although the story was fake, this method of getting something for nothing was very similar to what Interpius was doing now. This method is still okay. Although it's a little risky and the success rate isn't high, Han Xiao nodded to himself. However, in other people's eyes, this was getting something for nothing, but in his eyes, this was leading a wolf into the house. A wild leek had jumped into his bowl of its own accord. If he did not take it, he would not be able to live up to his identity. Setting up a branch on an ordinary planet was just a small profit. Han Xiao did not care about it at all. What he wanted was Interpius. No matter the era, talents were an important resource. A mission was triggered on the interface, but it only rewarded a small amount of experience. It was better than nothing, so Han Xiao accepted it. They went all the way to Interpace Villa. Han Xiao moved in with Aurora. Interpius was afraid of offending the big boss, so he was relieved after everything was arranged. The bodyguards returned to their post. In the corridor, the female secretary saw that there was no one around and could not help but wrap her arms around Interpace's neck excitedly. Great, with Black Star's help, we'll win for sure. Interpius squeezed out a smile, then shook his head and said in a deep voice, "Black Star's people are enough. I'm only borrowing his deterrence. As long as the big families don't play tricks, I can win the election fair and square. You don't know, when Black Star appeared just now, I was almost scared to death." The female secretary rolled her eyes. "It was really too risky this time. Don't do it again. If we didn't use this move so boldly, we wouldn't have a good ending." Interpays's eyes were firm. "It's useless to keep guessing the big shots' thoughts. If we don't try, how would we know if they will help us? We have to take the initiative to seize the opportunity." On the other side, Han Zhao's arrival shocked the big families in Red Budo. When the family heads heard the news, they immediately gathered to discuss what to do. In the meeting room, the family heads and important members of the big families had a serious expression. The atmosphere was very heavy. "Our information doesn't show that Interpius has any background. Why did Black Star come to see him personally?" A family head was puzzled. "There must be a mistake in our information. Immediately investigate his relationship with Black Star. Before that, all plans and arrangements against Interpius must be stopped." Another person shouted. Black Star's existence had disrupted their overall plan and became a huge obstacle that could not be ignored. The consequences of all actions had to be taken into consideration with Black Star's attitude. Everyone present was surprised by the relationship between the two of them. This was exactly what Interpius wanted the big families to misunderstand. With Black Star beside him, the assassination plan could not be carried out. The success rate was 0. If Interpius was really Black Star's friend, they would be dead if they dared to act recklessly. The members of the big families knew that they could at most do whatever they wanted on this planet. Compared to Black Star, they were no different from ants. Even if Black Star killed them, they would not be able to cause any waves in the universe. As a vassal civilization under the dynasty's jurisdiction, the central government would not stand up for them. If they died, it would be a waste. Luckily, we stopped the assassination in time. Otherwise, I'm afraid. One of the family leaders had a lingering fear. The current planet lord is still a member of our family. Let's pay a visit to Black Star first. There's nothing wrong with this behavior. We might be able to find out some information. A few hours later, the current planet lord of Red Budo brought a group of people with gifts and took the initiative to visit Interpay's villa. Han Xiao was staying in the villa, but he was more like the owner of the villa. Interpius did not dare to overstep his authority and reject the visitors for Han Xiao. He obediently reported this to his superiors. The planet lord of Red Budo waited outside for a while before he was allowed to enter. He suppressed his nervousness and walked all the way to the guest room. As soon as he entered the room, he was stunned. There was no sign of Han Xiao in the room. There was only a petite and cute girl sitting on the sofa with a serious expression. When he came back to his senses, he remembered that this was Black Star's subordinate. He hurriedly put away his surprise and sat across from her. "If you have anything to say, just tell me." Aurora tried her best to put on a serious expression. The planet lord of Red Budo smiled awkwardly and rubbed his hands. There was no trace of his usual dignified appearance. His tone was filled with flattery. "As the ruler of Red Budo, I would like to visit His Excellency Black Star and arrange for His Excellency Black Star's reception." "You don't have to worry. His Excellency Black Star is not someone you can meet just because you want to." Aurora waved her hand and imitated the tone Han Xiao used when he was teaching her. "If there's nothing else, please leave." The planet lord of Red Budo did not give up and probed a few more words. When he saw Aurora frown, he did not dare to stay any longer and immediately stood up to leave. When he walked out of the villa, the planet lord of Red Budo's expression became extremely ugly. He could not even see Black Star's face, but Interpius could personally receive Black Star. The meaning of this made his heart sink to the bottom. With Han Zhao's current status, he could make many low-level complicated things simple. The people of the big families were intimidated. They were afraid of provoking Black Star's anger and did not dare to use excessive means. Thus, they could only watch as Interpius continued to promote the election and increase the support rate, but they could not do anything to stop it. Han Zhao trained his energy while waiting for a few days in Red Budo. Soon, the election day arrived. On the day of the election, Interpius won the election with an overwhelming support rate. He gave an impassioned inaugural speech under the global broadcast and walked through the ceremony. Half a day passed in the blink of an eye. The sky gradually darkened and the curtain of night fell. The exterior screens of the high-rise buildings in the city were rolling the inauguration speech. From time to time, passers-by on the street would stop and look up to watch. The cheers and clinks of glasses of ordinary people could be heard from some small bars on the street. The flying vehicle moved slowly in the air. Interpius, who was sitting in the vehicle, looked at the scenes in the city through the window. The lights of thousands of homes flashed across his eyes. Under the night sky, his excitement and joy gradually faded. When he thought that there was a great God waiting for him at home, he could not be happy. The vehicle stopped in front of the villa. It was his home, but at this moment, it made him shrink back like a dormant monster. Interpius took a deep breath, calmed his emotions, and strode into the villa. "You're back." As soon as he entered the door, he saw Aurora leaning against the wall, waiting for him in the hallway. She pointed upstairs and smiled. "He's waiting for you in the study." Interpius squeezed his fingers nervously and went upstairs to the study. There was only Han Zhao in the room. He was standing in front of the bookshelf with his back facing him, reading a book with his head lowered. He did not need to turn his head to know that Han Zhao was here. He said calmly, "Since you're here, sit down." "Okay." The atmosphere in the room made Interpius gulp involuntarily and sit on the chair in front of the desk. Han Zhao closed the book and faced Interpius expressionlessly. "Since you've won the election, it's time to fulfill the conditions." Interpius let out a sigh of relief and said respectfully, "I understand. I will immediately use the power in my hands to arrange for Red Budo and the Black Star Corps to fully cooperate and support the Corps to establish a division here." However, before he finished, Han Zhao waved his hand and interrupted him. "I'm not talking to you about such a small matter now." Interpius's heart skipped a beat. Han Zhao stared at him calmly and said slowly, "Since it's done, then I'll say it openly. You'll use my deterrence to help you intimidate the major families. This is only your surface goal. Your second goal is to establish a division here through the Corps and obtain the long-term support of the Corps. Only then can you guarantee your position as the Lord." Interpius heard this and did not say anything. This was indeed his plan. The election was only the beginning. The major families had operated in Red Budo for so many years and had long controlled all levels of officials. Even if he became the Lord, he was just an empty puppet with no power. When Black Star left and the major families investigated the relationship between the two, his life would still be in danger. Therefore, for the sake of the long term, he had to find a backer. And Black Star, who happened to be nearby, attracted his attention and became his first choice. The other goal of this plan was to turn the Black Star Corps into his backer and use the momentum of cooperation to stabilize his position as the Lord. "What do you want?" Interpius pursed his lips and looked gloomy. Han Zhao looked at him and suddenly smiled. The heavy atmosphere in the room suddenly dissipated. "Don't be so nervous. Since I chose to help you, I naturally won't harm you." Interpius thought about it and his tense nerves suddenly relaxed. However, before he could take a breath, Han Zhao's next sentence made him freeze. "Okay, you've played enough. Pack your things and come with me." As soon as he finished speaking, Iapetus' expression froze. "You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.